Chapter 204. So annoying. You're always saying this. I'm only doing this because I want to share some of the pressure with my father. Uncle's influence has been growing in the court over the years, and even some of the court officials have come to curry favor with him. Moreover, Uncle has many experts under his command, so my father is even more worried. Chu Qian stomped her foot in dissatisfaction at the white-haired old man's advice. A trace of unease appeared on her delicate face. Although the current emperor, Chu Tianyang, had long sensed the disloyalty of King Jin, Chu Wan, he was extremely powerful and had many capable soldiers under his command. He also had some supporters within the imperial family. Thus, even if Chu Tianyang wanted to place righteousness before family, he did not dare to act rashly. He could only wait for an opportunity. Miss, this old servant understands your thoughts, but we can't rush the matter of roping in experts. It won't be too late for us to make plans after the World Conference of Heroes. Hearing this, the white-haired old man sighed helplessly. The white-haired old man was called Feng Xiao. In his early years, he had followed the current emperor Chu Tianyang to many battles. His strength was unfathomable, and he had made great achievements in battle. However, the cruel battles in his early years had left some indelible internal injuries in his body, causing his strength to decline. Although Feng Xiao's strength was not as great as before, he was still a 9th-level Star Realm cultivator. Thus, Chu Tianyang had personally assigned him to work in the princess residence. On the surface, he was only a steward in the residence, but he was secretly Chu Qian's personal guard, the most powerful expert in the entire princess residence. Due to his age and experience, and his strength, Feng Xiao's status in the princess residence was not low. Ordinary servants, maids, and guards had to respectfully address him as Uncle Feng. Uncle Feng, what do you think we should do? Chu Qian said weakly as she turned her head to look at Feng Xiao. Now that Fei Ren had left, she was unable to stop him even if she wanted to. Unless she really wanted to issue an arrest warrant and put a bounty on his head in the entire Darchu dynasty. This old servant thinks that this little kid's talent is not bad. He will definitely participate in the World Hero competition in a couple of days. At that time, we should be able to see him again. At that time, we can ask for the Emperor's help. Warriors need nothing more than yuan stones, pills, and spirit treasures. As long as the price Your Majesty offers is high enough, there is no need to be afraid that this little child will refuse. He is indeed a good seedling to be able to reach this step as a loose cultivator. In the future, this child will definitely become an expert of the Dacha dynasty. Feng Xiao gently stroked his long beard and nodded. He seemed to have a plan in his heart. All right, I'll leave it to you then. Chu Qian also waved her hand when she heard this, after which she gently moved her feet and turned around to leave this stone pavilion. The few young female servants, who were in a daze, also recovered. Immediately, they followed closely behind Chu Qian's footsteps. Master Feng, do you need me to capture this brat and bring him back to the mansion? After Chu Qian left, the few black-clothed guards hiding in the dark appeared one after another. One of the black-clothed guards knelt on one knee and asked Feng Xiao, who was in front of him, "Oh, are you sure you want to take action?" Feng Xiao glanced at the black-clothed guard in front of him and stroked his long beard. There was a faint smile on his old face, and there was a hint of playfulness. It seemed that he did not have high hopes for the other party. Yes, the black-clothed guard lowered his head again. His yuan qi cultivation was at the 6th level of the Star Realm. Although his overall strength was not as high as Chu Qian's, it was not too far off. Moreover, in his opinion, Fei Ren had just experienced a great battle, so his strength was not at its peak. It would not be difficult to capture him alive. You still underestimate him. This child's strength is not just limited to this, not to mention you alone. Even if I ask all of you to take action together, you may not be a match for him. It is very likely that you will anger him and lose your lives for nothing. Feng Xiao shook his head. In the face of his subordinate's request, a rare seriousness appeared on his face. It seemed that he had already sensed Fei Ren's strength was not ordinary. How? This child's strength is really so powerful. Hearing this, not only the black-clothed guard, but the other black-clothed guards also looked at each other. In their opinion, Although Fei Ren's strength was not bad, it was absolutely not to such an extent that even their combined strength was not a match for him. However, Fang Xiao in front of them was a veteran Star Realm expert. Moreover, he was one of the former great commanders of the Steel Corps. His strength and vision were powerful, so his judgment would naturally not be wrong. No matter how shocked the black-clothed guards were, they did not dare to refute him. "Lord Fang, what else do you need us to do?" Seeing this scene, the black-clothed guard restrained his expression and said in a deep voice. Since Fang Xiao had already spoken, his heart was like a mirror. Naturally, he would not take the initiative to find trouble with Fei Ren. Send someone to the Li residence to inform Li Mi to give some benefits to that Fei Ren. Have a better attitude. Just say that it is the princess's wish. It is inevitable that there will be some misunderstandings in this martial tea gathering. Tell him not to take it too seriously. Gently stroking his long beard, Fang Xiao spoke again with a calm tone. Li Mi was the current imperial court's grand commandant, a rank 1 official. The Li family behind him was also a first-rate force. They had a close relationship with the great Chu royal family. However, Li Mi was a civil official and not a military general. He was only good at poetry and singing. His strength was also very ordinary, only at the second level of the Middle Union realm. For such a person to curry favor with Fei Ren, firstly, it would give him face. Secondly, it would make it easier for Fei Ren to lower his guard. It was enough to show the princess's sincerity to rope him in. This subordinate accepts the order. Hearing this, the black-clothed guards also cupped their fists and quietly retreated. Their figures gradually disappeared into the darkness until they disappeared. Although I escaped from that girl, Chu Qian's entanglement, I still feel that the trouble has not disappeared. Returning to his residence, Fei Ren's expression was deep in thought. Today, he could be said to have displayed his might in the princess's residence. First, he beat up the genius Chang Li from the 9th ranks of the great families. Then, he defeated the noble princess Chu Qian, although his victory was not very glorious. Who is it? At this moment, he suddenly heard a few footsteps outside the room. In the next moment, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes and flashed out. "You must be my young friend Fei Ren?" Outside the room, a middle-aged man in a brocade robe stood with his hands by his side. After seeing Fei Ren appear, he also grinned and cupped his fists. The brocade-robed middle-aged man in front of him had an extraordinary temperament. Although he was not young, from the outline of his face, one could see a trace of handsomeness. The only flaw was that his strength was too weak. His yuan power cultivation was only at the second level of the Middle Union realm. "I am Fei Ren. Who are you?" After sensing that the other party had no ill intentions and was weak, Fei Ren also nodded slightly. The vigilance in his heart was slightly lowered, and he also cupped his fists. "I am Li Mi. This time, I am here on the order of Princess Lu Yuan to apologize to my young friend Fei Ren." In the face of Fei Ren's probing, the brocade-robed middle-aged man also chuckled. Then he took out a shiny silver spirit ring from his sleeve and handed it over to Fei Ren in the next moment. "Middle-grade spirit ring? Princess Her Highness is so generous. Wait, you said that you were Li Mi. Could it be that you are the current Imperial Court's Grand Commandant Li Mi?" Lifting his hand to receive the spirit ring, Fei Ren's face was slightly surprised. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and said, "Your humble servant is not talented, but I am." With a faint smile, Li Mi nodded again. Chapter 205. I've heard that Lord Li's talent is soaring to the sky and your reputation is widespread. I've also heard a little about it. My apologies. After knowing the background of the other party, Fei Ren restrained his expression and cupped his fists as he spoke. In the Dachu dynasty, the strongest martial artist was Emperor Chu Tianyong. However, the person with the most literary talent was Li Mi in front of him. Not only were his poems and songs widely circulated in the Dacha dynasty, but they were also faintly praised by the surrounding countries. It could be said that his literary talent was awe-inspiring and famous. Although the martial arts trend prevailed in the Xianxing continent and people cultivated yuan power in order to break through the shackles in hopes of obtaining powerful strength, In some low-level dynasties and small countries, the status of literati was not low, and they were deeply respected by the people. After all, for some poor people, they did not have any talent for cultivation and were not martial artists. They were at the bottom of the Xianxing continent. Apart from drinking wine, the only spiritual life left was poetry and songs, which were used to relieve boredom and express the loneliness in their hearts. Therefore, Fei Ren was not too proud of Li Mi in front of him. The other party was worthy of his respect. Little brother Fei Ren, you're too courteous. I'm only a scholar with a belly full of literary talent, and my cultivation and origin energy is low. On the other hand, little brother, your natural talent is extraordinary, and you'll surely become a heroic expert of the Darchu dynasty in the future. In the face of Fei Ren's praise, Li Mi was very modest. He seemed to know his own limitations and shook his head with a smile. Although he was talented and was an official of the first-grade Grand Commandant, his reputation and prestige were limited to the Dacha dynasty. In the Xianxing continent, strength was respected. Without cultivating Yuan power and becoming a martial artist, it was difficult to change one's fate. Therefore, Li Mi could be considered to have dabbled in martial arts. However, his talent for cultivation was average. After cultivating for dozens of years, he was only a second-grade Middle Union martial artist. His strength was not worth mentioning. The things in this intermediate spirit ring are the princess's compensation. I hope little friend Fei Ren doesn't mind the previous misunderstanding. Changing the topic, Li Mi said again. Under Fang Zhao's instructions, Li Mi also had some understanding of what had happened in the princess residence today. Immediately, he couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for Fei Ren. After all, a young genius who could fight evenly with Chu Qian was quite rare even in the imperial city. With Chu Qian's strength, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage even if she were to fight against the genius disciples of the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families. However, in the end, Fei Ren had sealed her acupoints and won without a fight. This was enough to show that Fei Ren's strength wasn't weak. Most importantly, his origin power cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Star Realm. He's already at the 3rd level of the Star Realm at such a young age, and his strength far surpasses that of his peers. This child is indeed a genius. No wonder Her Highness the eldest princess took a liking to him and spent so much to rope him in. Li Mi secretly praised himself in his heart as a glimmer of light flashed across his deep eyes. Although he was only an errand boy this time, it wasn't a loss to be able to see such an outstanding talent like Fei Ren. Thank you, Sir Li. I hope you can go back and tell Her Highness that I don't care about such trivial matters. I'll accept this intermediate spirit ring. If Her Highness needs anything in the future, I'll do my best to help. Although he already knew Li Mi's background and plans, Fei Ren was still very polite on the surface. With such a huge sum of money in front of him, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Furthermore, Chu Qian's actions were still to rope him in. Fei Ren was also very clear in his heart that although it was impossible for him to sell his life for the imperial family, on account of the fact that there was no discord, no concord, and this windfall, Fei Ren didn't mind returning the favor. Okay, I'll take my leave first. Seeing that Fei Ren's attitude had changed and he finally relented, Li Mi raised his eyebrows slightly and laughed out loud. The next moment, he turned around and left. He had already completed the task that Fei Ren had instructed him to do. Moreover, he didn't expect Fei Ren to be so straightforward at first. Not only did he accept the compensation, but he also promised to do him a favor. For Li Mi, this visit was already a gain. Although Fei Ren still didn't agree to work for the imperial family, this matter was already a good start. In the face of a young genius like Fei Ren, Li Mi naturally knew that he couldn't push his luck. Otherwise, it would be easy for him to fail. I don't know what Chu Qian sent over. It's an intermediate spirit ring. The Chu clan is really rich. After Li Mi left, Fei Ren took out a sparkling silver spirit ring from his bosom with a curious expression on his face. Physical body golden core. Low-grade origin stone. Grade 3 and above medicinal materials. Mystic grade monster core. Looking inside the spirit ring with his origin energy, Fei Rin's mouth gradually widened. His eyes became a little incredulous. He saw that the huge spirit ring was filled with treasures. There were countless origin stones, monster cores, and medicinal materials. There were even some valuable elixirs. TSK. This girl is really willing to pay a price. If I don't help, it will seem a little unjust. With a thought, a brownish-yellow elixir the size of a longan appeared in Fei Rin's left palm. Physical body golden core. The elixir in his hand was a fourth-grade elixir called the Golden Body Elixir. It contained a rich medicinal efficacy that could stimulate the blood. After swallowing it, it could stimulate the 8 extraordinary meridians of the martial artist. Although it couldn't directly enhance the martial artist cultivation, it could significantly strengthen the martial artist's physique. Therefore, it was favored by some martial artists who had refined their bodies. Moreover, the quality of the physical body golden core in Fei Rin's hand was not low. It was at least 88%, and its medicinal power was not more than 10%. According to the price in the black market, this elixir could be sold for at least tens of thousands of low-grade origin stones. It could be called a rare elixir. Now that Fei Rin's origin energy cultivation had gradually reached a balance, without a lot of resources, it would be difficult for him to break through in a short time. If he could swallow this physical body golden core to strengthen his physique, his strength would also increase by a lot. Taking back the physical body golden core, Fei Rin's gaze continued to look at the other treasures. There were many good things in this middle-grade spirit ring. In addition to the grade 4 physical body golden core, there were about 50,000 low-grade origin stones and more than 100 medicinal materials of grade 3 and above. As for the demon cores in the spirit ring, most of them were of yellow rank or above. There was a small number of mystic rank demon cores, and there were about 50 of them. Among them, the rarest one was the demon core of the mystic rank demon beast six-eared macaque. The six-eared macaque was a demon beast that lived deep in the forests of the ancient mountains. It liked to live in groups, and its nature was fierce and aggressive. It was extremely vengeful. If a martial artist killed a six-eared macaque and was discovered by its group, that martial artist would most likely be surrounded and attacked by a group of six-eared macaques. In addition, an adult six-eared macaque's demon power would at least reach the mystic rank demon beast, and the leader of the group would be a mystic rank demon beast. Therefore, the risk of killing a six-eared macaque was not small, and its demon core was naturally expensive. A mystic rank demon core, and it's even a six-eared macaque's demon core. This time, I owe that girl Chu Qian a big favor. Looks like this power struggle in the Imperial City is destined to be difficult for me to stay out of it. Putting away the demon core in his hand, Fei Rin's expression gradually became serious. He had a premonition in his heart that the battle between Emperor Chu Tianyang and Prince Jin Chu was about to begin. Chapter 206. Fei Rin put away the middle-grade spirit ring in his palm and immediately began to cultivate in seclusion. He never slacked off on the path of a martial artist. Although he couldn't break through in a short period of time, he still had the 4th-grade physical body golden pellet that Chu Qian gave him and more than 50,000 low-grade origin stones. If he absorbed all of them, he could slightly increase his strength. 7 days later, the World Heroes Conference finally arrived as scheduled. At that time, the Imperial City was bustling with noise and excitement. The young geniuses of various provinces and a large number of loose cultivators all rushed to the Imperial City of Great Chu, and there was an endless stream of people. The World Heroes Conference was held every 5 years. Martial artists who could stand out and obtain a good ranking would receive a large amount of rewards. In addition, the 3/9 ranks of the great families and the upper echelons of various forces in the Imperial City would also appear to watch the competition. It could be said to be the focus of attention. In these years, there was no lack of talented loose cultivators who made a name for themselves in the World Heroes Conference and attracted the attention of the 3/9 ranks of the great families and even the imperial family. In the end, they were taken in as disciples of sects or even experts in the imperial palace. Therefore, the World Heroes Conference this time was a great opportunity for a carp to leap over the Dragon Gate. It was highly valued by the martial artists of various provinces and counties, especially some young geniuses with decent strength. They hoped to obtain good results and enter the ninth ranks of the great families in the imperial court. But even so, the World Heroes Conference had an unchanging rule. Every participant had to be a young genius under the age of 26, and their origin power cultivation couldn't be lower than the 8th level of the Middle Union realm. If the imperial court and the ninth ranks of the great families found out that a participant had broken the rules, they would be severely punished or even killed. After all, since ancient times, there was no lack of martial artists with wishful thinking. About 10 years ago, there was a wandering cultivator from the northern desolate county. His cultivation was at the 5th level of the star realm, and he had used a strange martial art to reduce his appearance and bone age to less than 26 years old. He had registered to participate in the World Hero Competition. However, this rogue cultivator was ultimately seen through by the current emperor, Chu Tianyang, and killed with a single palm strike. His corpse was then hung on the city gate tower at the northern gate of the imperial city, exposed for 3 days and 3 nights. No one dared to collect his corpse. With this precedent, basically all the martial artists who came to participate in the World Hero Competition were the younger generation of martial artists. As for those who were over the age limit or whose cultivation did not meet the requirements, they generally did not dare to pass. After all, once they were discovered, their lives would be in danger. Today is the day of the gathering of the world's heroes. It's time to come out of seclusion. At the first glimmer of dawn, Fei Run, who was sitting cross-legged, slowly opened his eyes. After holding his breath and concentrating for an entire night, in addition to absorbing the abundant yuan power from tens of thousands of low-grade yuan stones, his yuan power cultivation had also steadily increased. He was about a quarter away from breaking through. Although his yuan power cultivation had not broken through to the 4th level of the star realm, it was very close. Moreover, in addition to the increase in his yuan power cultivation, Fei Rin's 6th level movement technique, flying sky and earth burrowing technique, had also broken through and successfully entered the realm of great mastery. Now, not only could he condense yuan power wings to fly in the air, but his speed had also more than doubled. He was now comparable to a half-step martial mentor. In other words, as long as a martial mentor did not make a move, ordinary high-level star realm martial artists would not be able to do anything to him. As long as Fei Run wanted to escape, no one would be able to catch up to him. It could be said to be a top-notch life-saving technique. Flying sky and earth burrowing technique has entered the realm of great mastery. In addition, I have a 3rd level spirit type martial art, Spirit Blade. Even if I meet a strong opponent, I can still catch him off guard. Ordinary martial artists' yuan power is not as strong as an alchemist's, so it is difficult for them to resist the attack of Spirit Blade. This move can be considered my trump card. Clenching his fists, Fei Rin heavily exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. By now, he had already mastered all the martial arts he had mastered. He had also swallowed the 4th level golden body elixir, which had turned into pure medicinal power to nourish and strengthen his body. Although Fei Rin's current physical strength was not strong enough to fight against a spirit treasure, he was invulnerable to swords and spears, water and fire. Even if he did not have the protection of Yuan Qi, ordinary weapons would not be able to hurt him, unless it was a high-grade weapon or a spirit treasure. Swoosh! Fei Rin's feet touched the ground lightly. The next moment, he broke through the door and rushed out. Then, his figure disappeared in a flash as he rushed toward the central square of the imperial city. After these days of secluded cultivation, although his strength had not improved rapidly, it could be said that he had made some small gains. He was now able to contend with ordinary 9th level star realm martial artists. The central square of the imperial city was located outside the main gate of the imperial palace. It was large enough for tens of thousands of people to watch at the same time. Moreover, the ground of the square was made of solid asphalt stones, which could withstand the impact of yuan power. At the same time, it was also a good place for martial art competition. After 5 years of waiting, the World Heroes competition finally began with a bang today. Outside the central square of the imperial city of the Dacha dynasty, a grand opening ceremony was held as scheduled. This year's World Heroes competition was different from the previous ones. Not only were there more participants, but there were also many famous young geniuses. Apart from the direct descendants of the various forces and families in the imperial city, even the younger generation of the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families were participating. It could be said that there were many experts present. The opening ceremony of the World Heroes competition, this time, was hosted by a first-rank official of the imperial court. Although the process was a little boring and full of nonsense, the various martial artists who had been waiting outside for a long time did not show any impatience. It seemed that they were already used to it. "Brother Fei, you are here as well." At this moment, a figure flashed out of the crowd and walked toward Fei Ren with a faint smile. His face was pale and handsome. It was naturally Song Sherluin, a disciple of the Song family. "Brother Song, long time no see." Seeing that it was Song Sherluin, whom he had met at the martial tea party, Fei Ren cupped his hands. Apart from Sido Lai of the Alchemist Guild, Song Sherluin was one of his few friends in the imperial city. "Brother Fei, I heard that there are many experts participating in the World Heroes competition this time. Even the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families are acting out of the norm and sending disciples to participate. I didn't want to participate at first, but I can't disobey my father's orders." Song Sherluin sighed and said helplessly. It seemed that he did not have much confidence in his own strength. After all the martial artists who could participate in the World Heroes competition were extremely talented. There were not many weak martial artists in history. According to the previous results, with Song Sherluin's cultivation at the 2nd level of the Star Realm, he would at most be able to squeeze into the top 100. He would be considered to be in the middle or lower class. "Brother Song, do your best. Even if you lose, you won't regret it." Fei Ren also guessed Song Sherluin's thoughts. He did not say much and only nodded. If he did not have the confidence to win, then his future achievements in martial arts would be limited. Of course, he would not explain this to Song Sherluin, who was standing in front of him. Song Sherluin had to comprehend it himself. "Brother Fei, I heard that there are about 500 to 600 people participating in the World Heroes competition this time. However, with your strength, you should be able to achieve a good result. At the very least, you will be able to make it into the top 50. Song Sherluin smiled faintly after he said that. He seemed to be very optimistic and didn't care about his ranking. Chapter 207. Why do you say that, elder brother? Fei Ren was slightly surprised. Judging from Song Sherluin's words, he seemed to know a lot about the World Conference of Heroes and had heard a lot about it. When Song Sherluin saw the interest on Fei Ren's face, he cleared his throat and said with a serious expression, "This is information for my family, but it's only a rough estimate. I'm not 100% sure. Although this World Conference of Heroes is filled with experts on the surface, there are 4 people who are recognized as first-rate experts by various forces. They're far better than their peers, and their strength is unfathomable. It's almost certain that they'll make it into the top 10 for people." Upon hearing this, Fei Ren's expression turned serious. "That's right. They're the top disciples of the 3-9 ranks of the great families and the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing. Brother Fei, to put it bluntly, the strength of Chung Li, whom you defeated in the princess's mansion that day, is merely at the middle level among the numerous disciples of the pavilion of Princeton. It can't be considered to be at the top. The disciples of the pavilion of Prince Tung that are participating this time, even some of the veteran high-star martial artists, cannot be underestimated. They can be said to be the top disciples of the pavilion of Prince Tung." Song Sherluin sighed. Although he was a direct descendant of the Song family, a first-rate force in the imperial city, his strength and status were still weaker than the disciples of the 9 ranks of the great families. It was not difficult to understand why the nominal disciple of the Lingjian school, Liang Yuan, whom Fei Ren had killed in the northern Baron County, could be so domineering for so many years despite his ordinary cultivation base. "Elder brother, May I know the background of the top disciple of the pavilion of Prince Tung? As the saying went, know thyself and know thy enemy, and thou shalt be victorious in every battle. Faerun naturally knew this, so he immediately asked. Although his strength was comparable to an ordinary 9th-level Star Realm martial artist, none of his opponents in the World Conference of Heroes were weak. Almost all of them were geniuses of the same generation. Moreover, Faerun dared not easily reveal some of his trump cards. Once secrets, such as the Immortal Refining Cauldron, the Azure Dragon Halberd, and the Universe 8 Trigrams flag were exposed, he would attract endless trouble and even be killed. The Beijing Azure Dragon Halberd and the Universe 8 Trigrams flag were both 5th-grade spirit treasures. As for the Immortal Refining Cauldron, it was needless to say. Gu Qingmu, Song Shiluan said with a slight nod. This person's strength is extraordinary. As early as 3 years ago, his Yuan power cultivation reached the 6th level of the Star Realm, and he has mastered several high-level martial arts. Moreover, he is also a Grade 2 alchemist. Usually, he receives guidance from the Medicine King, Lin Feng, and his mental energy is very powerful. I heard that some geniuses of the same generation couldn't even withstand his powerful mental energy pressure and were defeated before they even made a move. He is simply a monster. Medicine King Lin Feng was the only Grade 4 alchemist in the current Dacia dynasty. Not only was he the president of the Alchemist Association, but he was also the pavilion master of the Pavilion of Princeton. He was in charge of the life and death of nearly 1,000 disciples and elders. How many disciples does this person have? Are they all over the world? Hearing this, Fei Ren's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. Back in the Forgotten Worry Valley, he had learned from Shunlan that Lin Feng was a disciple of the Pavilion of Prince Tung about 30 years ago before he became the Medicine King. However, he later became the disciple of the miraculous doctor, Shun Tianjun. Coupled with his extraordinary talent, he grew all the way to the illustrious Medicine King of the Dachu dynasty. Therefore, Faerun wasn't too surprised that Lin Feng was able to inherit the position of the Pavilion Master of the Pavilion of Princeton. After all, in the martial arts world, strength was respected. Other than his identity as a Grade 4 alchemist, Lin Feng was also a high-star realm martial artist. Moreover, his realm wasn't low. Brother Fei, what's wrong? Seeing that Fei Run was deep in thought, Song Shiluan also opened his mouth and asked with a puzzled expression. Although Gu Qingmu's strength wasn't weak, in his heart, Fei Run in front of him was also very strong. He might not necessarily lose to him. If he was lucky, he might even be able to fight his way into the top 10. After all, the rules of the World Hero Competition were to take turns to battle. There was only a short break in the middle. If Gu Qingmu had experienced a few fierce battles and used up a lot of his origin power, and he finally met an opponent like Fei Run, there was a high chance that he would be defeated. However, this was only Song Shiluan's personal guess. He would never have thought that even if Gu Qingmu was in his peak condition, he was far from being a match for Fei Ren. It's fine. Other than this guy, how is the strength of the young disciples of the Qingyuan sect and Lingjian school? Shaking his head, Fei Run asked again, indicating that he was fine. The name of the young disciple of the Lingjian school is Ren Jianan. His origin power cultivation is also at the 6th level of the Star Realm, but his strength is higher than Gu Qingmu's. Moreover, he cultivates the Lingjian school's signature technique, the 9 sword arts of the Azure Sky. He can transform one sword into 10,000 swords, and the power of his sword chi is comparable to that of a quasi-5th level martial art. Even a martial artist at the 8th level of the Star Realm wouldn't dare to underestimate him. A quasi-5th level martial art. Hearing this, Fei Ren's jaw dropped. His face was full of shock. One had to know that his 5 Mountain King capturing palm was only a quasi-4th level martial art. However, Ren Jianan's 9 sword arts of the Azure Sky was indeed comparable to that of a quasi-5th level martial art. How could he not be shocked? A quasi-5th level martial art was extremely rare even in the Dacia dynasty. It was worthy of being the signature technique of the Lingjian school's 9 ranks of the great families. That's right. I heard that Ren Jiannan has already cultivated the 9 sword arts of the Azure Sky to perfection. He will be a strong opponent in this world hero competition. He is even more dangerous than Gu Qingmou. Nodding his head, Song Shilun said with lingering fear. He seemed to have heard of Ren Jiannan's strength. No wonder the disciples of the Lingjian school are so arrogant. Among the 3-9 ranks of the great families of the Dacha dynasty, the Lingjian school's strength was ranked first. The Qingyuan sect and the Pavilion of Prince Tong were second. This was also the reason why the imperial court had a good relationship with the Lingjian school. As long as the Lingjian school was obedient, the other 2-9 ranks of the great families would not dare to cause trouble in the dark. What about the other person? The number 1 disciple of the Qingyuan sect is a new master. The outside world does not know much about him. I only know that he is called Su Sun. He is not weak and is only in his early 20s. Facing Fei Ren's question, Song Shilun spoke again. All right, you said that the crown prince, Chu Jiuxing, is also participating in this world hero competition. Fei Ren rubbed his chin as if he suddenly remembered something. He looked at Song Shilun again. Yes, but these are all rumors. I can't be sure, but it should be possible. Song Shilun nodded his head. Interesting. Looks like this world hero competition is getting more and more complicated. Fei Ren narrowed his eyes as a hint of battle intent flashed across his face. The current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing, was the eldest son of the emperor, Chu Tianyang. He was also talented and was not weak. However, his only flaw was his simple and honest personality. Although he was a powerful martial artist, he was not a qualified heir to the throne. Therefore, Chu Tianyang was having a headache. After all, being born in the imperial family, there was no lack of open and covert struggles. A good person would not be a good emperor. He might even cause chaos in the world. However, these things had nothing to do with Fei Ren. He only wanted to get a good ranking in the world hero competition. At the same time, he wanted to get a big reward. Chapter 208. Brother Fei, the opening ceremony is over. Looks like the world hero competition is about to begin. At this time, Song Shilun opened his mouth again. Just as they were talking, the list of participants for the world hero competition was announced. Including the major forces in the imperial city, the 3-9 ranks of the great families, and some young geniuses from other provinces, there were about 500 participants. Even if it was a one-on-one duel, one day was far from enough to determine the winner of the competition. Therefore, the world hero competition would usually last for 3 days until the top 20 warriors were determined. At the same time, they would receive a large amount of rewards. Yes, the emperor and those old fellows from the sects have also appeared. Nodding his head, Fei Ren raised his eyes and looked at the central square not far away. He saw that on top of the city tower, there were a few powerful figures with strong auras standing quietly. They were the upper echelons of the 3-9 ranks of the great families. In front of these sect elders, a middle-aged man wearing a purple and gold dragon robe stood with his hands behind his back. His eyebrows were like swords, and his dark eyes revealed a touch of depth. At the same time, his entire body emitted the aura of a king. Even the upper echelons of the 9 ranks of the great families did not dare to be negligent and stood behind him. The emperor of Great Chu, Chu Tianyang. Chu Tianyang was the only person in the world who could make the upper echelons of the 9 ranks of the great families bow and bend their knees. Moreover, Chu Tianyang was also the only person in the Dacha dynasty who was infinitely close to the martial master realm. His strength had already reached the half-step martial master realm. Your Majesty, it's about time to begin. At the back, a Lingjian school elder stepped forward and cupped his hands. Why is there only a few of you? Where's Ren Jianlong? Glancing at the Lingjian school elder beside him, Chu Tianyang frowned slightly. Unlike the other 2 schools of the 9 ranks of the great families, the Lingjian school had a close relationship with the imperial court and the imperial family. Now that the world hero competition had begun, the Lingjian school's first seat had not yet arrived. They had only sent a few sect elders, which made him feel somewhat displeased. Replying to your majesty, the first seat was delayed by some matters. He is currently on his way and will probably reach the imperial city in less than half a day. Perhaps sensing the displeasure on Chu Tianyang's face, the Lingjian school elder acted as if he was facing a great enemy. Immediately, he cupped his hands and spoke respectfully. A drop of cold sweat involuntarily slid down his forehead. Clearly, he felt an enormous pressure in the face of Chu Tianyang's powerful aura. Ren Jianlong was the head of the Lingjian school, one of the 9 ranks of the great families. At the same time, he was one of the few martial artists in the Dacha dynasty who had reached the 10th level of the Star Realm. His strength was second only to Emperor Chu Tianyang, and he was quite famous in the Dacha dynasty. However, he kept a low profile, so only Chu Tianyang and some higher-ups of the Lingjian school could get in touch with him. You may leave. Hearing this, Chu Tianyang immediately flicked his sleeve, indicating for the Lingjian school elder to leave. After all, Ren Jianlong was considered a powerful martial artist in the Dacha dynasty. Moreover, he was also the head of the 9 ranks of the great families. He couldn't say much about a small delay, so as to avoid causing a conflict between the two sides. In the end, the Chu imperial family still had to rely on the support of these sects and forces in order to maintain its stability. Your Majesty, Ren Jianlong has always been slow. It's not strange that he would be late. After the Lingjian school elder left, a white-robed young man laughed faintly. Then, his figure flickered, and he came to Chu Tianyang's side. His pale face was very handsome, and there was even a hint of feminine charm between his brows. It was actually strangely feminine. Lin Feng, who do you think will take first place in this World Conference of Heroes? Glancing at the white-robed young man beside him, Chu Tianyang's aura was like an abyss. Then, he withdrew his gaze and said faintly, although the white-robed young man in front of him only looked to be in his 20s and was as handsome as a beautiful woman, his actual bone age was already over 50. However, because he had a technique to retain his youthful appearance and had swallowed some pills, his appearance didn't change much. He still looked like a young man. As for the alchemist in the Dacha dynasty who had such ability, there was only one medicine king, Lin Feng. If I say His Highness the Crown Prince, will your Majesty feel that I'm too flattering? However, with His Highness the Crown Prince's strength, if nothing unexpected happens, taking first place is indeed not a problem. As if sensing Chu Tianyang's thoughts, a folding fan suddenly appeared in Lin Feng's hand as he said with a light smile, "You understand my thoughts." As his voice fell, Chu Tianyang's expression also froze. Then he laughed loudly. Your Majesty, more than 500 participating martial artists have all arrived. This is the list of participants. At this moment, a figure flashed across the top of the city tower. Then a dark-faced man in a black robe with a determined expression landed steadily. The next moment, he stepped in front of Chu Tianyang. At the same time, he was holding a file in his hand. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation of emotion on his weathered face. The black-robed man's name was Su Tianxing. He was the sect master of the Qingyuan sect of the 9 ranks of the great families. His strength was also unfathomable, and he was no weaker than Ren Jianlong. He was also a 10th level star realm martial artist. However, compared to the former, Su Tianxing's personality was straightforward and reserved. In the eyes of outsiders, he was more rigid. Pass down my order. The World Hero Competition will begin immediately. Glancing at Su Tianxing in front of him, Chu Tianyang raised his hand and took the file. Then, he waved his sleeve and said, under the attention of tens of thousands of people, the highly anticipated World Hero Competition finally began. According to the rules of the World Hero Competition, the martial arts competition on the first day was only the preliminary round. Everyone would fight one round, and the winner would advance to the second day's semifinals. As for the opponents, they would be randomly selected. Although it was only the preliminary round on the first day, the atmosphere and popularity of the World Hero Competition was not low at all. A large number of spectating martial artists and even commoners had gathered around the central square. There were also some Imperial city guards who had set up a protective zone to prevent these people from being affected by the aftershocks of the duels. Every participant, come up and draw your own number. The next number you draw will be your next opponent. At this moment, in the central square, a middle-aged man in a martial arts robe stood quietly. Next to him was a wooden box that was sealed on 3 sides with only one opening. He seemed to be the judge of the World Hero competition this time. Because the World Hero competition used a random selection system, the opponents were also random. Therefore, there was a bit of luck involved. If one was lucky and drew a weaker opponent, they could easily advance to the second day's semifinals. If one was unlucky, they could draw a genius disciple from the 3 or 9 ranks of the great families, or even the crown Prince Chu Jiuxing. Then, they would be eliminated on the first day of the preliminary round. If one was unlucky, they might even lose their life. After all, the World Hero competition did not have a rule that one could not kill. Everything depended on the outcome. After a while, more than 500 martial artists had drawn their numbers. Number 16, holding a gray ball in his hand, 2 big words were carved in the middle of the ball. Fei Ren pondered. According to the rules, his opponent was the participant who held the number 17 ball. Chapter 209. Let the first battle begin. At this moment, the shout of the burly man in the martial robe came from the central square. As the referee of this World Hero competition, his cultivation level was not low. Naturally, he was not afraid of the impact of the battle between the contestants. At the same time, he maintained a fair referee. According to the rules of the World Hero competition, the order of the contestants was related to their numbers. Therefore, the first battle was naturally between the contestants who drew numbers 1 and 2. As for Fei Ren, his number was 16. Although he was not the first to battle, he was at the front. Whoosh! As soon as the burly man in the martial robe finished speaking, a man in green flew out from the crowd and landed steadily in the central square. His eyes were burning with passion. Qingyang County, Gaozhan, please enlighten me. The green-robed man had a delicate face and was only in his early 20s. Although the origin energy aura on his body was not very strong, it had reached the level of half a step into the high star realm. He was only 1 step away from the high star realm. In other provinces and counties, he could be considered a genius. But this was the Darchu dynasty's imperial city, and the top geniuses from all over the Darchu dynasty had converged during the World Elite Gathering. Even though the green-clothed young man, called Gao Zhan's strength wasn't weak, he could only be considered to be ordinary when placed here. Imperial City, Coiling Stone Sect, Sichuan. Not far away, a burly young man with dark skin also flew over. At this moment, he was looking at Gao Zhan from afar. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit. It was obvious that he had been waiting for a long time and was ready to battle at any moment. First level of the high star realm. After Sichuan appeared, Gao Zhan's expression changed slightly. In the next moment, he clenched his fists under his sleeves. His opponent had already stepped into the high star realm, so he wasn't weak. Although his origin energy cultivation had already reached half a step into the high star realm, the difference between a half step into the high star realm and a first level high star realm wasn't small. It wouldn't be easy for him to defeat his opponent. Damn it, thinking of this, Gao Zhan showed a bitter smile. He had encountered a tough opponent at the beginning. He had to admit that his luck was bad. It's Sichuan from the Coiling Stone Sect. That guy is a ruthless one. Looks like the kid from the Azure Sun County is in for it. I heard that Sichuan just broke through to the first level of the Star Realm half a month ago, but his strength is already extraordinary. He fought against 2 cultivators of the same level by himself, and he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position at all. The defensive power of the mysterious boulder technique he cultivates is even more astonishing. Among the crowd of spectators, some of the rogue cultivators also recognized Sichuan's origin. Suddenly, discussions broke out everywhere. Everyone looked at Gao Zhan with some gloating eyes, but most of them were regretful. Is this Coiling Stone sect very powerful? Fei Ren retracted his gaze and looked at Song Shirluan. Although he had been in the Imperial City for some time, Other than the Alchemist Association and the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families, he didn't know much about the other powers in the Imperial City. The Coiling Stone sect is also a first-rate power. They've been around the Imperial City for many years. Their foundation isn't very strong, but it's not weak either. Their sect leader is also a veteran high-star realm cultivator. I heard that his origin energy cultivation has reached the 7th level of the star realm. Song Sherlin nodded in response to Fei Ren's inquiry. His tone was filled with emotion. I see. Hearing this, Fei Ren's expression turned serious. The sect leader of the Coiling Stone sect was indeed not weak. After all, even the second commander of the Steel Corps, Yang Qing, was only at the 7th level of the star realm. Just as the crowd was discussing, the first battle began. One side was a half-step high-star realm cultivator, while the other side was a first-level high-star realm cultivator. The difference in strength was very obvious. There was a whole realm between them. Although Gao Zhan gave it his all and unleashed his strength to the limit, he was still no match for Shi Chuan from the Coiling Stone sect. After more than 20 rounds, he was punched out of the arena by his opponent. He immediately spat out blood, and a few of his ribs were broken. Wah! After spitting out another mouthful of blood, Gao Zhan's face was extremely pale. At this moment, he was looking at Shi Chuan, who was not far away, with a terrified expression. Originally, he thought that even if he was no match for his opponent, he could at least last 50 rounds. Now, it seemed that he had underestimated his opponent. Shi Chuan's strength was beyond his imagination. Although Gao Zhan lost miserably, Shi Chuan did not seem to have any intention of killing him. Gao Zhan only suffered some injuries and was quickly carried off the arena. The atmosphere of the battle was still lively, and it did not affect the battle at all. Shi Chuan has indeed won. The difference between a half-step high-star realm cultivator and a half-step high-star realm cultivator is too big. Unless one has a top-notch martial art or a spiritual treasure, it will be very difficult to close the gap in strength. Seeing Gao Zhan lose, Song Sherlin, who was outside the arena, had already expected this. However, Fei Ren was not interested in a battle of this level. At this moment, he closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep, as if he was waiting for his turn. After all, the first day of the battle was only the preliminary round. Each person would only fight one round. The intensity of the second day's battle could not be compared to the second day's semifinals. At the same time, on the official road thousands of miles away from the Imperial City, a group of military horses galloped past, kicking up a storm of dust. The World Hero Competition has already begun. We must reach the Imperial City before nightfall. The imposing aura of the mighty army was like a rainbow. Everyone in the army was armed and armed. The person in the lead was a middle-aged, burly man in pitch-black armor. There was a clear scar at the corner of his eye. He seemed to be a master who licked blood from the edge of a blade all year round. His entire body emitted a murderous aura, and his strength was not ordinary. On the left side of the middle-aged man's armor, the two words, Iron Armor, could be clearly seen. He seemed to be a soldier from the Iron Armor army. At this moment, he was covered in dust. The mount under his feet was also a top-notch mortal-level magic beast, the wind-chasing horse. These people were all elites of the Iron Armor army. At the same time, they were also Prince Jin's loyal men of sacrifice. At this moment, they were heading to the Imperial City with only one goal, and that was to help Prince Jin, Chu Wan, ascend the throne and take over the world. Ren Jianlong, you should understand that there is no way out of working for Chu Tianyang. At the top of a mountain, a blue-robed figure stood with his hands behind his back. Not far away, a black-haired, middle-aged man knelt on one knee. At this moment, his face was pale and weak. Even the weapon in his hand had been sent flying by someone and stabbed into the ground. You actually stepped into the third realm of the martial body. How could this be? Ren Jianlong's expression was aghast. The blue-robed figure in front of him was incomparably powerful and far stronger than him. It was obvious that he had stepped into the third realm of the martial body, and his cultivation had reached the first level of the martial master realm. Moreover, the blue-robed figure in front of him was none other than the current Prince Jin, Chu Wan. That's right. In the end, the master of this world is me, Chu Wan, and not Chu Tianyang. Looking coldly at Ren Jinlong, Chu Wan grinned. His tone was so cold that it was terrifying. It was obvious that he had been hiding for many years. Today, he finally revealed his ambitions and claws. Your Highness's strength is extraordinary. With the blessing of the heavens, you should ascend to the throne of the Emperor. I, Ren Jinlong, am willing to go through water and tread on fire for your Highness. I will not hesitate to die 1,000 times. After weighing the pros and cons in his heart, Ren Jinlong kowtowed 3 times and 9 times to Chu Wan the next moment. It was obvious that he had chosen to submit. After all, a wise man submits to the circumstances. As long as he dared to resist Chu Wan, the only outcome would be death. The difference in strength between the 10th level of the Star Realm and the 1st level of the Martial Master Realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even if there were more than 10 10th level Star Realm martial artists, they would still not be a match for a 1st level Martial Master Realm expert. This was the difference. Chapter 210. Very good. Looks like you're not an idiot. Seeing Ren Jinlong kneel and submit, Chu Wan narrowed his eyes. He had clearly expected this. Now that he had stepped into the 3rd level of the martial body, his cultivation had reached the 1st level of the Martial Master Realm. In the entire Dacha dynasty, no one was his match. Even if he faced the current emperor, Chu Tianyang, he could easily defeat him within 5 moves or even kill him. As for Ren Jinlong, there was no need to talk about him. Ren Jinlong's cultivation was only at the 10th level of the Star Realm, which was inferior to Chu Tianyang. If Chu Wan wanted to kill him, it would be a matter of minutes. I didn't expect Chu Wan to break through to the 1st level of the Martial Master Realm. However, with the Dachu dynasty's cultivation resources and origin stone veins, it's impossible for a martial artist to step into the 3rd level of the martial body. Breaking through to the half-step Martial Master Realm is already the limit. Could it be that all these years he's been hiding his strength and biding his time and obtained some kind of opportunity? Kneeling on the ground, Ren Jinlong was shocked. His face was solemn, and he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. As the head of the Lingjian school's 9 ranks of the great families, he had originally worked for Emperor Chu Tianyang alone, and he had a close relationship with the Chu royal family. However, Ren Jinlong never expected that Chu Wan, who used to be King Jin, would suddenly rise. His cultivation had stepped into the 1st level of the Martial Master Realm, and he had become the number 1 person in the world. Even he had no choice but to submit. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. Your choice is not wrong, but this king needs to see your sincerity. With a wave of his sleeve, Chu Wan spoke again. His tone seemed to be implying something, and his expression was indifferent. This subordinate understands. As long as your Highness gives the order, I and the disciples of the Lingjian school will do our best. We will not hesitate to go through fire and water for your Highness's path to becoming an emperor. Hearing this, Ren Jinlong kowtowed again with a humble tone. He was a smart person, so he naturally knew that there was a hidden meaning in Chu Wan's words. Right now, he only lacked a proof of allegiance. As long as Chu Wan believed in his sincerity and surrendered, when Chu Wan ascended the throne in the future, as a meritorious subject, he would also benefit. Let's go. Lin Feng can't wait any longer. Acting isn't his forte. Chu Wan looked at Ren Jinlong, who was kneeling on the ground and didn't dare to move because of his aura. In the next moment, Chu Wan looked up to the sky and laughed. Then his figure flew straight into the sky. The Yuan power wings on his back flickered with flowing light. At the same time, he flew in the direction of the imperial city with a speed as fast as the wind. Elemental energy transformed into wings. Kinesis flight. This was an ability that only martial masters could grasp. Seeing this scene, Ren Jinlong's heart trembled. He secretly rejoiced in his heart. If he did not choose to submit to Chu Wan, his final outcome would be extremely miserable and he would die without a burial ground. I didn't expect that even Lin Feng would betray his majesty. It seems that he already knew that Chu Wen's cultivation had greatly increased, and he had stepped into the first level of the martial master realm. This group of people had indeed planned this for a long time. It seems that the Dacha dynasty is about to change. Ren Jianlong's expression kept changing. In the next moment, he restrained his expression and also rushed in the direction of the imperial city. Now, everyone kicks a man who is down. Although he had no intention of rebelling, King Jin, Chu Wen, was the ruler of the world. Anyone who resisted would die. For a martial master realm expert, anyone below the martial master realm was an ant. Imperial City, Central Square. At this moment, the competition was becoming more and more intense. The atmosphere was fiery. From time to time, there would be competitors who were sent flying out of the arena and lost consciousness. Some unlucky competitors were even killed on the spot by their opponents. The spectators in the surroundings were also shouting nonstop and discussing animatedly. Obviously, they were all affected by the intense atmosphere of the martial arts competition in the field. Everyone's expression was extremely excited. Die. In the middle of the square, a yellow-faced rogue cultivator in linen clothes was also cut in half by his opponent. Blood splattered everywhere as he lost his life. He didn't even have the time to say the word surrender. The winner was a young genius from the Imperial City. His origin power cultivation had already reached the second level of the Star Realm. Round 7, Zhou Fu wins. Seeing this scene, the large man in a martial robe also shouted loudly and announced the result of the competition. TSK, he can't even withstand a single blow. Glancing at the rogue cultivator whose head had been separated from his body, the young genius named Zhou Fu in the arena sneered inwardly. He then turned around and left in a carefree manner. It seemed that his opponent was too weak. Even if he won, it didn't arouse his interest at all. This guy is still so ruthless. That rogue cultivator in linen clothes was no match for him at all. However, he didn't even have the time to say the word surrender before he was killed on the spot. Outside the arena, seeing Zhou Fu easily win, Song Sherluan crossed his arms in front of his chest and raised his eyebrows slightly. He seemed to have some understanding of Zhou Fu's background. The number he had drawn was over 100, which was far behind Fei Ren. Naturally, it wasn't his turn to fight yet. At this moment, he could only watch quietly outside the arena. It's not a skill to bully the weak. This Zhou Fu's strength is average at most. Unlike Song Sherluan, Fei Ren's insight was very unique. The rogue cultivator in linen clothes who had been killed in one strike was only half a step into the Star Realm. There was a huge gap between him and Zhou Fu, who was at the second level of the Star Realm. Naturally, Zhou Fu was no match for him. However, in Fei Ren's eyes, Zhou Fu was no different from that rogue cultivator in linen clothes. Although his origin power cultivation had reached the second level of the Star Realm, his strength was still very weak. He could easily kill him with one strike. That's right. It seems that it's brother Fei's turn to fight next. As soon as he finished speaking, Song Sherluan also nodded and didn't refute him. After all, even Cheng Li, a young genius from the pavilion of Prince Teng from the 9 ranks of the great families, whose cultivation had reached the 4th level of the Star Realm, had been defeated by Fei Ren at the martial tea gathering in the princess residence. Needless to say, Zhou Fu was only at the 2nd level of the Star Realm. This was the confidence brought by strength. It's indeed my turn to fight in the 8th round. Hearing this, Fei Ren also glanced at the number ball in his hand. In the next moment, he jumped out as light as a swallow. Swoosh! Fei Ren's body landed steadily. His expression was calm. In the next moment, a figure flashed across him. It was a man in a gorgeous brocade robe. He looked slightly older, and his origin power cultivation had reached the 2nd level of the Star Realm. He seemed to be Fei Ren's opponent in this competition. The 8th round, Fei Ren versus Li Yunfeng. Seeing that both sides had entered the arena, the burly man in the martial robe shouted loudly and announced the start of the competition. Fei Ren, it's really this kid. How is it possible? He's still alive. Not far away, at the edge of the crowd, Xiahou Ba, who was wearing a bamboo hat, narrowed his eyes in surprise. It had been almost a year since he planted the parasite on Fei Run in the Azure Sun County. In this year, Xiao Ba had not seen Fei Run go to the Jin Mansion to ask for the antidote. He originally thought that Fei Run was unwilling to work for the Jin Mansion and would rather die from the parasite's backlash. However, God's plan was not as good as man's. Not only did Fei Run not die, but his origin power cultivation had also improved greatly. He had also stepped into the Star Realm. Even a martial artist of the High Star Realm can't get rid of the parasite's backlash without a specially refined antidote. How did this kid? Looks like the plan has changed. When he thought of this, Xiao Ba's face was as gloomy as stagnant water. His killing intent gradually rose. Since the other party had appeared in the Imperial City and was clearly not on the same side as him, he could only choose to eliminate Fei Ren. As the saying went, if he was not a friend, then he was an enemy. Now, under Chu Wen's deliberate care, Xiao Ba's strength had improved by leaps and bounds. His origin power cultivation had also reached the 3rd level of the Star Realm. Moreover, he had a group of powerful shadow guards under his command. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that he could eliminate Fei Run. Chapter 211. As for sneaking into the Imperial City this time, Xiao Ba also had a mission. In addition to observing the world's hero competition and the movements of the members of the Imperial family, the Shadow Squad under his command had also begun to lie in ambush all over the city, waiting for an opportunity to make a move, ready to coordinate with the enemy at any time. These Shadow Guards were all men of sacrifice who were loyal to Chu Wan, Lord of Jin. Most of them were orphans. They had received cruel training since childhood and had great strength. Moreover, the internal rules of the Shadow Guards were strict. Without Chu Wen's personal order, even Xiao Ba, the nominal leader, could not command them. Fine, let's see how far this brat can go. In any case, His Royal Highness has already descended to the world, and the entire Imperial City is about to be surrounded by the Iron Armor Army. I don't think he can escape from the palm of our hands. If he doesn't submit, then he will die. Thinking of this, a trace of ruthlessness flashed across Xiao Ba's eyes. He then raised his hand to press down on the bamboo hat on his head, and his figure slowly disappeared into the crowd. Killing intent. At this moment, in the central square, Fei Ren frowned slightly, and then looked at a corner of the crowd, not far away. Strange, who is it? Just now he did feel a trace of killing intent, and the target was him. However, this killing intent was fleeting and not obvious. Even Fei Ren could not pinpoint the exact location of the person who released the killing intent. Now that he was in the Imperial City, other than the Nye family and the Long family, which he had conflicts with before, Fei Ren had no enmity with other forces. Moreover, Nye Feng of the Nye family had already been killed by him, and Long Jingqiu, who had luckily escaped, did not appear in this world hero competition. Could it be someone from the 9 ranks of the great families, the pavilion of Prince Teng? Retracting his gaze, Fei Ren muttered to himself. After all, Cheng Li, who came from the pavilion of Prince Teng, was beaten up by him in the princess residence. In the end, he vomited blood and fainted. Cheng Li was an elite disciple of the pavilion of Prince Teng, and he could not rule out the possibility of revenge. You still have the time to be distracted in a duel? Do you really think you are above everyone? At this moment, a man's voice suddenly came from the opposite side, and at the same time, it interrupted Fei Ren's thoughts. The person who spoke was the man in the brocade robe, named Li Yunfeng. Whoosh! The spirit ring on Li Yunfeng's finger flashed with white light. The next moment, he took out a black saber. The black saber was as thin as a cicada's wing, and the saber was less than 3 fingers wide. It exuded a burst of cold air. It was an extraordinary weapon spirit treasure, and its grade was at least not lower than the 3rd grade. Your weapon is not bad, but your strength is average. Fei Ren wasn't surprised when he saw his opponent take out his natal spiritual treasure. He crossed his arms and smiled faintly. He didn't need to use his full strength to deal with a genius of the same generation who was at the second level of the Star Realm. He only needed to use 30% of his strength to crush his opponent. Arrogant. In the face of Fei Ren's calmness, Li Yunfeng was slightly angry. He immediately shouted and waved his saber to attack Fei Ren. Chua. In the face of Li Yunfeng's violent attack, Fei Ren's expression remained calm. He tapped the ground lightly with the tip of his foot, and his entire body turned into an afterimage and disappeared. At the same time, he dodged the opponent's attack, only bringing about a gust of wind. What? Seeing Fei Ren dodge his attack so easily, Li Yunfeng's expression changed slightly. He seemed to be in disbelief. Boom! The sharp black saber slashed heavily on the ground. Even the solid asphalt boulder on the ground cracked, but it didn't hurt Fei Ren at all. Li Yunfeng also felt the web between his thumb and forefinger tremble. It was as if he had punched cotton with all his strength. Your strength is not bad, but your speed is a bit too slow. Shut up. Fei Ren's unhurried words slowly sounded in his ears. In the next moment, Li Yunfeng shouted angrily. His entire face twisted in anger. Although his opponent's cultivation was also at the high level of the Star Realm, the aura he revealed was only at the first level of the Star Realm. Li Yunfeng's cultivation was at the second level of the Star Realm. He had the advantage in terms of cultivation, but he was still toyed with by Fei Ren. Li Yunfeng naturally couldn't tolerate this and was furious. 1,000 killing saber array. Seeing that his attack had failed, Li Yunfeng flicked his wrist again. In the next moment, the black saber slashed out again. A large amount of yuan power surged out from the edge of the saber. Then, it transformed into a saber chi that swept towards Fei Ren, who was not far away. Boom! Boom! Every streak of saber chi swept up a series of afterimages. They were like dragons emerging from the sea. The attack was biting cold, and its power was close to that of a quasi-fourth-grade martial art. Is he serious? But still useless. Seeing Li Yunfeng's full strength, Fei Ren restrained his expression and stopped dodging the attack. At the same time, wisps of majestic golden origin power surged out of his dantian and wrapped around his body. It was like a huge, vivid, and majestic golden origin power spiraling around his body. What a powerful origin power fluctuation. Is he really only at the first level of the Star Realm? Is this person hiding his strength? Brother Fei's strength has increased again. At this time, there was a commotion outside the arena. Everyone had different expressions. It seemed that they were all shocked by Fei Ren's sudden burst of power. Even Song Shirluan, who was standing aside, was stunned. Apparently, he was also surprised. Rumble. Under everyone's gaze, the countless streaks of saber chi were about to hit Fei Ren's body. In the next moment, the streaks of saber chi were scattered by the huge, circling golden dragon. Instantly, there was a series of booming sounds. However, Fei Ren was still standing on the ground, unharmed. How is this possible? Seeing that Fei Ren had easily blocked his full-powered attack, Li Yunfeng was completely dumbfounded at this moment. Although he was not from the Imperial City, he was also a top genius in other provinces. However, he had never expected to encounter a freak like Fei Ren on the first day of the World Heroes competition. He was no match for him at all. I only need one move to defeat you. The remaining power receded, and the golden origin energy on Fei Ren's body gradually dissipated. In the next moment, he gently stretched out his right index finger, and his eyes narrowed slightly. What is he doing? Although this guy has some strength, he is too arrogant not to use his origin energy. These little kids are indeed young and frivolous. On the tower in the central square, seeing Fei Ren's strange actions, several sect elders were puzzled. It seemed that they did not understand his intentions. A bunch of idiots. Suddenly, Lin Feng, who was next to him, sneered. His face was full of disdain, as if he had already noticed something. Pavilion Master Lin, what do you mean by that? Faced with Lin Feng's insults, the elders from the various sects revealed angry expressions. However, before they could finish their words, they abruptly stopped. They saw Li Yunfeng who was originally standing tall, suddenly vomit blood and frantically retreat. After that, he fell to the ground and completely lost the ability to fight. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, the sect elders' expressions changed slightly. They cried out in surprise, as if they had seen a ghost. In just a breath's time, Li Yunfeng was defeated. Moreover, it was obvious that Fei Run did not use any origin energy. He merely pointed at the air, and Li Yunfeng, whose origin energy cultivation had reached the second level of the star realm, spat out blood and fell to the ground. It was unstoppable. Chapter 2:12. This kid's mental strength is very powerful. He was able to defeat his opponent with one move. It's obvious that he used some kind of mental martial arts. As far as I know, this kind of technique is unique to alchemists. Su Tianxing crossed his arms in front of his chest and said slowly. At the same time, he looked at Fei Run, who was in the center of the square below. Unlike the other elders, who were looking at each other in dismay, he and Lin Feng both understood what had happened. The reason why Li Yunfeng had been pushed back by Fei Ren's finger attack and had vomited blood was because he had suffered a mental attack deep in his mind. Mental martial arts? Hearing this, one of the Qingyuan sect elders' expression changed slightly. Those who could master mental martial arts generally had high talent and comprehension, and most of them were alchemists. As for Fei Run, he could use mental martial arts and kill Li Yunfeng, who was at the second level of the star realm, in one move. It could be seen that even if he was not an alchemist, his mental strength would not be too weak. Sect Master, is this kid an alchemist? The Qingyuan sect elder was a little shocked. After all, Fei Ren looked so young, only 17 or 18 years old. No one would have thought that not only had his origin power cultivation reached the high level of the star realm, but he was also an alchemist with powerful mental strength. After all, using mental strength to kill enemies was an alchemist's specialty. Almost every alchemist would cultivate some mental martial arts. Therefore, if some martial artist with weak mental strength encountered a mental attack, it would be difficult for them to resist it. Even the high-level star realm martial artists were no exception. It's possible, but I'm not sure. As he spoke, Su Tianxing also turned his gaze and looked at Lin Feng next to him. He was the one who had noticed Fei Ren's technique. Moreover, Lin Feng was the king of medicine of the Dacha dynasty and the only level 4 alchemist in the Great Chu. He could definitely see some details about Fei Ren. If even Lin Feng was not sure, then Su Tianxing, a martial artist, naturally would not dare to speak lightly. However, facing the gazes of Su Tianxing and the crowd, Lin Feng continued to smile without saying a word. He gently waved the folding fan in his hand as if he was rather unruly and difficult to open his mouth. Lin Feng, tell me more about it. Seeing this, Chu Tianyang decided to break the deadlock as he spoke in a deep voice. Replying to Your Majesty, this kid is an alchemist and his spiritual force isn't weak. In my opinion, he is at least at the second layer of the profound martial realm. Upon seeing Chu Tianyang's gaze turn towards him, Lin Feng chuckled and finally opened his mouth to speak in a calm tone. Although he could ignore Su Tianxing and the others, it was different when facing Chu Tianyang. After all, Chu Tianyang was the current emperor of the Great Chu dynasty. He was the emperor of the Great Chu dynasty and was extremely powerful. Naturally, he did not dare to be arrogant and unruly. His attitude became very humble. Oh, aren't you the president of the Alchemist Association? When did such a genius appear there? Chu Tianyang's expression remained the same as he asked again. Your Majesty, this child's background is unknown. Even I am not very clear about his background. In the face of Chu Tianyang's doubts, Lin Feng shook his head. Interesting. It seems that the Dacha dynasty is now filled with talents. A mere rogue cultivator actually has such ability. Moreover, I see that this kid has great potential. In the future, he will definitely be a talent of my Dacha dynasty. Hearing this, Chu Tianyang's expression froze for a moment before his expression gradually relaxed. He sighed emotionally, as if he was somewhat optimistic about Fei Ren. Congratulations, Your Majesty. The country is prosperous and the people are at peace. Seeing this, many of the upper echelons of the sect, including Su Tianxing, understood. They immediately knelt on the ground and spoke in unison. Your Majesty has met a hidden dragon. Congratulations. At this moment, even Lin Feng was no exception. He also knelt on one knee and placed the folding fan in front of his chest, bowing down in a posture of submission. Ha ha! My beloved subjects, please rise. Looking around, Chu Tianyang also laughed out loud in the next moment. Then, he lightly swung his dragon robe, revealing the posture of a tyrant. It was as if the true dragon, the son of heaven, had descended. Chu Tianyang, enjoy it. Your days as an emperor are coming to an end. His head hung low, and a trace of viciousness flashed across Lin Feng's white and seductive face. In the next moment, his face returned to normal, and a faint smile flashed in his eyes. Just like the upper echelons of the sect beside him, no one could know what he was thinking. Outside the central square, Fei Ren wins. At this moment, seeing Li Yunfeng vomiting blood and falling to the ground, completely losing the ability to fight, the brawny man in martial robes, who was in charge of the referee, shouted loudly and announced the result of the battle. Where did this Fei Ren come from? How can he be so strong? It was actually an instant kill. And what kind of martial art is that? I clearly didn't see any fluctuations of origin power just now. How'd he do it? Mental energy. This person's mental energy is very strong. Not only has his origin power cultivation reached the high level of the star realm, but his mental energy is also not weak. This person is really a genius. After the outcome was decided, many of the spectating martial artists were shocked. Among them, some of the commoner girls had fanatical expressions. At this moment, they were constantly shouting Fei Ren's name, as if they were girls chasing after celebrities in the modern world. This made Fei Ren somewhat uncomfortable. Brother Fei, what kind of martial art was that just now? It's too strong. I didn't even see it clearly, and that Li Yunfeng vomited blood and fell to the ground. After Fei Ren left the stage, Song Shilun hurriedly came forward and said in a shocked tone, "Small tricks, not worth mentioning." Glancing at Song Shilun in front of him, Fei Ren did not boast and said modestly, "The finger just now was the rank 3 martial art, Spirit Blade, that he had obtained from Yefeng. Now that he had cultivated Spirit Blade to the small success stage, he could use his mental energy to condense an invisible blade, which he could then use to pierce through with his finger. Therefore, although Li Yunfeng's origin power cultivation had reached the 2nd level of the star realm, his mental energy was very weak. Coupled with the fact that he was caught off guard, he naturally could not block the attack of Spirit Blade and was instantly killed by Fei Ren. Moreover, if he had not deliberately held back, Li Yunfeng would not have just vomited blood and lost. His consciousness would have been torn apart by the mental energy attack, and he would have been reduced to a half-mentally retarded child. Brother Song, I wish you victory in your first battle. See you tomorrow. After cupping his hands again, Fei Ren turned around and was about to leave. Now that he had won the first battle, and each person would only fight one battle on the first day of the World Hero Tournament, there was no need for him to stay here. In addition, the fanatical atmosphere here made Fei Ren feel somewhat uncomfortable. He preferred to be alone and quiet. Brother Fei, when Song Shilun saw that Fei Ren was planning to leave, he opened his mouth to speak. However, before he could finish his words, Fei Ren's figure had already transformed into an afterimage and fled into the distance. Soon after, he disappeared into the vast sea of people, completely disappearing without a trace. Do all these geniuses come and go without a trace like this? Fine, I can't embarrass the Song family. I must win the first day of the preliminaries. Looking in the direction that Fei Ren's figure disappeared, Song Shilun also secretly clenched his fists. A fiery battle intent burned in his eyes. As a direct descendant of the Song family, a first-rate force in the imperial city, he was even more powerful than Song Yuan. Naturally, he was unwilling to be inferior to others. Chapter 213. Imperial City, inside a room in an inn. It can't be wrong. That killing intent was definitely directed at me. Could it be Chu Wen's people? Fei Ren was deep in thought. In the next moment, a trace of ruthlessness flashed across his eyes. Although the first day of the World Conference of Heroes went very smoothly and he had successfully advanced to the semifinals, Fei Ren now had a new worry. Back in the Azure Sun County, he had met Chu Wen's subordinate Xiahou Ba. Xiahou Ba had been hiding his strength for many years and had many capable soldiers under him. Moreover, from Chu Qian's attitude in the princess residence, it could be seen that Fei Ren was not the only one who had noticed Chu Wen's rebellious intentions. Now that a large number of martial artists had entered the Imperial City, not only was it more difficult to investigate, but it was also very easy for experts to sneak into the city. Once King Jin openly rebelled and war broke out, even Fei Ren would not be able to stay out of it. There are steel troops stationed in the Imperial City. Apart from the 4 commanders, Emperor Chu Tianyang and the other members of the royal family cannot be underestimated. If Chu Wen dares to rebel openly, he must have made sufficient preparations. Moreover, with his Iron Armor Regiment and a group of martial arts masters, he can at most be on par with the power of the royal family. Could it be that he has roped in those old fellows of the sects to be spies? Frowning, Fei Ren's mind wandered. Although this was only his personal guess, it was not impossible. I have to quickly increase my strength. If my guess is correct, Chu Wen's people should have also snuck into the Imperial City and found my tracks. Thinking of this, Fei Ren let out a breath of turbid air. Although he had agreed to work for Chu Wen and swallow the parasites that Xiahou Ba released, this was only a temporary measure. Fei Ren would not work for Chu Wen. Moreover, the parasite's poison had already been refined into pure energy by him and gathered in his dantian. Originally, I planned to use these devil cores to refine pills and improve my alchemy skills. Looks like I'll have to put that aside for now. A white light flashed between his fingers. The next moment, Fei Ren took out a large pile of colorful demon cores from his spirit ring. They piled up in the room like small mountains. At the same time, they emitted a concentrated demon aura. Now that Chu Wen's people had discovered him and revealed obvious killing intent, it was obvious that they already knew that he had ulterior motives. In addition, Fei Ren knew of their ambitions, so they naturally wouldn't let him go so easily. Inside the Imperial City, there was killing intent everywhere. This was Fei Ren's intuition, and it was very strong. If one comes, I'll kill one. If 2 come, I'll kill a pair. If you're not afraid of death, then come at me all at once. When he thought of this, Fei Ren's gaze became even sharper. In the next moment, he waved his hands to the side and instantly sucked over a dozen yellow rank magic cores into his palms. Devour. With a low shout, Fei Ren suddenly crushed the magic cores in his palms. Strands of demon aura also began to slowly gather into his dantian in his abdomen. At the same time, it was devoured and refined by the immortal refining cauldron. Currently, his origin power cultivation was not far from breaking through. It was less than a quarter of the way there. Although he didn't have any origin stones to help him cultivate, the effect of absorbing these magic cores was the same for Fei Ren. After all, he had the Immortal Path's supreme treasure, the immortal refining cauldron, in his body. Before he knew it, Fei Ren had absorbed most of the demon cores in his spiritual ring. There were only a few low-level profound grade demon cores and a mid-level profound grade 6-eared macaque demon core left. However, he was still a little bit away from breaking through to the next level. He was only half a step away from the 4th level of the Star Realm. Just a little bit more. Sitting cross-legged, Fei Ren's entire body was filled with a majestic golden origin power. The shadow of a golden dragon vaguely appeared, and it vaguely had the aura of a dragon soaring into the sky. However, it seemed to be a little bit lacking and couldn't roar into the 9 heavens. It was as if his origin power cultivation was stuck at a critical point. Forget it. Strength is more important. After some hesitation, Fei Ren finally made up his mind in the next moment. He immediately took out the few remaining profound rank magic cores in the spirit ring and swallowed them. At the same time, he took out the cold ice stone that could increase his cultivation speed. His expression was solemn. The low-level, profound, rank magic cores and the six-eared macaque magic core in his possession were all rare goods. They were given to him by Chu Qian. Moreover, they were more than enough to refine a fourth-grade pill. However, his cultivation was at the critical point of breaking through. Giving up halfway wasn't in Fei Ren's character. For Fei Ren, increasing his strength was extremely urgent. Moreover, the invisible threat in the Imperial City was constantly stimulating his heart. He still needed to become stronger. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to protect himself. Boom! Another hour passed. After swallowing several rare, profound, rank magic cores and cultivating with the help of the cold ice stone, Fei Ren's origin power cultivation finally broke through the shackles and stepped into the fourth level of the high star realm. At this moment, the aura on his body also increased again and again. It was like a dragon soaring into the sky. An invisible aura immediately spread in the room, causing people's hearts to palpitate. The golden origin power has become stronger again. The Dharma 1000 transformation technique is indeed a 9th grade cultivation method. With my current strength, I can deal with a 9th level high star realm martial artist. Coupled with the Universe 8 trigrams flag, the green dragon halberd, and other trump cards, even a 10th level high star realm martial artist can't do anything to me. Clenching his fists, Fei Ren's expression changed. Although his origin power cultivation was only at the 4th level of the high star realm, the aura on his body was far stronger than that of an ordinary 8th level high star realm martial artist. It was comparable to a 9th level high star realm martial artist. Moreover, his strength had also increased by more than a few times. Right now, martial artists below the martial master realm couldn't do anything to him. A 10th level high star realm martial artist could still pose a threat to Fei Ren. However, even if he couldn't defeat them, he could still use the flying heaven and earth burrowing technique to escape. The flying heaven and earth burrowing technique was a 6th grade movement technique. After a martial artist cultivated it, he could control the ability to fly. Moreover, Fei Ren had already cultivated it to the realm of complete mastery. His movement technique speed had also increased to a terrifying level. Without the ability to fly, an ordinary high star realm martial artist couldn't catch up to Fei Ren's speed, let alone kill him. Hence, this was why Fei Ren dared to stay in the Imperial City. Even if King Jin, Chu Wan, rebelled and led a rebel army into the Imperial City, no one would be able to stop Fei Ren if he wanted to run. Moreover, Chu Tianyang and his steel core weren't to be trifled with. It wouldn't be easy for Chu Wan to change the dynasty. I wonder if I can fight against Chu Wan with my current strength. Fei Ren gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. In the next moment, he slowly stood up. A hint of viciousness appeared on his handsome face. Now that his origin power cultivation had broken through, he wanted to test his limits. As the current King Jin of the Dacha dynasty, Chu Wan was famous for his strength. It was rumored that Chu Wan's origin power cultivation had reached the 8th level of the high star realm. However, Fei Ren had a feeling that Chu Wan's strength wasn't as simple as it seemed. It was very likely that Chu Wan was even stronger. Chapter 214. At the same time, just as Fei Ren's cultivation had just broken through, a few mysterious black shadows quietly approached the inn he was in. The alley corner was silent. Number 7. Are you sure the target Lord Xiaohou told you is here? A vulture's gaze suddenly appeared from the darkness. The person was masked and dressed in black. His eyes were cold and emotionless, and his entire body emitted a biting cold aura. At the same time, his entire body was deeply integrated into the darkness, leaving no trace. He was some kind of assassin. Yes, leader. According to Lord Xiaohou's information, that kid lives here. There's no mistake. As soon as the voice fell, a few obscure shadows also appeared behind the black-clothed man. One of the shadows spoke in a cold and firm tone. They seemed to be from the same group, and their target was Fei Run in the inn. Very good. You've dealt with everyone in the vicinity, right? The black-clothed man spoke again in a deep voice, as if he had been prepared. Reporting to leader, not a single one was spared. All of them have been killed, except for the brat called Fei Run. In response to the black-clothed man's question, the shadow lowered his head and respectfully replied. Although this person's face was covered, one could faintly detect the killing intent in his eyes. Very good. Let's begin. Hearing this, the leader of the black-clothed men nodded secretly. The next moment, he took out a sharp black dagger from his bosom. The cold light within it was dazzling. It seemed to be a powerful soul treasure weapon, and its quality was not inferior to third grade. These people were the Shadow Guards under King Jin Chuan. They were disciplined and loyal. They always prioritized the completion of a mission, and were even willing to give up their lives. In order to maintain the mystery of the Shadow Guards, the members did not have names, only code names. Even the leader of the black-clothed men in front of them was the same. Other than Chu Wan and Xiahou Ba, the other members of the king's mansion did not know about the existence of Shadow Guards. Even the soldiers and generals of the iron-armored army were no exception. It was precisely because of the mystery and power of the Shadow Guards that Chu Wan attached great importance to them. They could be called his trusted force. Those who could become members of the Dark Shadow Guard were 1 in 100, and their talents were not weak. Moreover, most of these members were orphans. They had been cultivating and learning assassination methods in the Jin Mansion since they were young. Even the weakest of them had a high-star realm cultivation. They could not be underestimated. At present, in addition to Fei Run, there were also some rogue cultivators staying in this inn. However, these rogue cultivators had long been killed by the Shadow Guard. As for the absence of the smell of blood and the sounds of battle in the inn, it was attributed to the powerful assassination methods of a Shadow Guard, which allowed them to quietly kill their targets. Dong Dong, who is it? Inside the room, just as Fei Ren was finishing his cultivation, there was a faint knock on the door. Dear guest, a lord asked me to pass you something. The voice of the person who came was very weak. He seemed to be the waiter of the inn, which made Fei Run let down his guard a little. Come in. Fei Run waved his hand, and the door opened in the next moment. Swoosh! Swoosh! As soon as the door opened, several black figures quickly rushed into the room. At the same time, a cold light flashed, and one of the black figures slashed towards Fei Ren's head. The attack was so fast that ordinary martial warriors would not be able to react in time. Clang! The blade flashed, and the sharp blade heavily slashed onto the ground, producing a crisp sound of silver and iron clashing. However, Fei Ren's figure had long disappeared from the room, as if he had evaporated into thin air. It was extremely strange. This is bad. We've been tricked. Seeing this, the Black Shadow's expression changed slightly. Boom! However, before he could react, a heavy fist that was flickering with golden light came from another direction. Soon after, it heavily imprinted itself on the Black Shadow's chest, instantly piercing through his heart meridian, causing blood and flesh to fly everywhere. Poochie! The golden light disappeared, and in the next moment, the Black Shadow spat out a mouthful of thick blood. Then, he powerlessly knelt on the ground, dead as a doornail. Number 7. Seeing that their companion had died, the other black-clothed men in the room were also shocked and cried out in alarm. Originally, they thought that they would catch the other party off guard, but they didn't expect that Fei Run had already sensed it, and with a backhand punch, he instantly killed one of the black-clothed men. The attack was so fast that no one present could react, and the entire process only took a short breath of time. Who sent you to kill me? Inside the house, a cold man's voice faintly came out, but he still could not find Fei Ren's figure. The situation has changed. He's a tough one. At this moment, the few black-clothed men who had already exposed their whereabouts looked at each other. In the next moment, they actually scattered in all directions, as if they were forced by Fei Ren's strength to flee to the outside world. You want to run? Sensing the actions of these black-clothed men, Fei Ren coldly snorted in the next moment. Then, his figure flashed and appeared in front of one of the black-clothed men. His left hand immediately turned into a golden arm that flickered with golden light, and he crushed the man's neck, instantly turning it into a bloody mess. This black-clothed man's cultivation was at the first level of the high star realm, and his strength was similar to the black-clothed man who had been blasted apart by him with a single punch. However, he was unable to resist Fei Ren at all. He didn't even have the chance to scream before he died on the spot. Since you don't want to tell me who's behind this, then go to hell. After killing one of them with a single strike, Fei Ren's eyes were cold. At the same time, his figure flashed and disappeared again. Soon, he appeared in front of another black-clothed man and killed him with a single palm strike. Blood flowed everywhere. Although these black-clothed men all had high star realm origin power cultivation, most of them were only at the first level of the high star realm. The strongest black-clothed man, the leader, was only at the third level of the high star realm. Naturally, he was no match for Fei Ren. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Moreover, Fei Ren's great flying earth-escaping technique had been cultivated to the great completion realm. He was invincible among those below the martial master realm. Even if these black-clothed men in front of him fled in different directions, they still wouldn't be able to escape from his grasp. Soon, they were all killed and turned into cold corpses. After a while, all the black-clothed men who had attacked the inn were dead. At this moment, only the leader of the black-clothed men was left alive. Devil monster! Looking at Fei Ren, who was filled with killing intent and imposing aura, the leader of the black-clothed men was also shocked. Other than fear, there was also deep shock. Before the operation, according to Xiahou Ba's information, Fei Ren was only a high star realm itinerant cultivator. Moreover, his cultivation didn't exceed the second level of the high star realm. However, now it seemed that this was a big mistake. There were 7 or 8 of them in this assassination operation. The leader of the black-clothed men was even a martial artist at the third level of the high star realm. However, he was still easily killed by Fei Ren. The terror of his opponent's strength was far beyond their imagination. Be obedient if you don't want to die. Who are you? Who sent you here? Just as the leader of the black-clothed men was trembling with fear, Fei Ren's voice rang out again. In the next moment, Fei Ren's figure flashed and landed steadily in front of the leader. His dark eyes were filled with coldness and ruthlessness. Chapter 2:15. Brat, we miscalculated this time, but with your little strength, you can't defeat that lord. Looking at Fei Ren approaching him, the leader of the black-clothed men gritted his teeth and sneered, as if he had already made up his mind to die. Are you really not afraid of death? Fei Ren's eyes turned slightly cold. Another strand of golden origin energy gushed out from his left palm, and a powerful, baleful aura emerged from his body. The reason why he spared the other party's life was because he wanted to find out the background of the mastermind. Ha ha ha! Ugh! Facing Fei Ren's threat, the leader of the black-clothed men also had a crazy look in his eyes. In the next moment, a trace of black blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Brat, I'll be waiting for you in the underworld. The leader of the black-clothed men suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and then his entire body fell backwards. His body powerlessly collapsed to the ground, and in less than a breath of time, he completely stopped breathing. His eyes turned white, as if he had taken poison to commit suicide. Damn it! In the blink of an eye, the leader of the black-clothed men had committed suicide, while Fei Ren's expression was solemn. The other party's decisiveness and ruthlessness had indeed caused him to be unable to react. Dove poison, huh? How ruthless! Raising his hand to tear off the mask on the leader's face, Fei Ren's face revealed a pondering expression. He saw that the other party's corpse had already begun to turn stiff and cold, and there was a strange ball of black blood at the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that he had swallowed the poison in his mouth to commit suicide, and it was not an ordinary poison, but the highly toxic dove poison. The dove poison melted in the mouth, and its toxicity was so strong that even a high-star realm martial artist would die upon contact with it. Moreover, it was very easy to carry, and only a small amount was needed to kill. This group of black-clothed men were all high-star realm cultivators. Not only were they proficient in assassination methods, but they were also very disciplined. It was obvious that they came from the same organization. If the assassination failed, he would take poison and commit suicide without leaving any traces behind. It seems that I've been targeted by a very dangerous organization. Standing up, Feyrin also rubbed his nose. Although he did not know where the group of black-clothed men who assassinated him came from, it was obvious that they were related to Chuan. Perhaps these black-clothed men were specially sent by the other party to target him and kill him. Chuan, I'll remember this. You forced me to do this. Thinking of this, Feyrin's handsome face once again revealed a trace of killing intent. If others didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. Originally, he didn't want to get involved in the power struggle in the Imperial City, but the other party was determined to kill him. Along the way, he had killed countless enemies, so naturally, Feyrin didn't mind adding a few more lives to his hands. Refined. Raising his hand, Feyrin covered the corpse of the black-clothed man on the ground with his palm. Accompanied by a surge of yuan power, the remaining life essence on the black-clothed man's corpse was completely absorbed by Feyrin. Then it turned into pure and powerless yuan power in his dantian, strengthening his cultivation. Now that Feyrin's origin power cultivation had reached the 4th level of the Star Realm, he was more familiar with refining the divine Immortal Cauldron. Therefore, refining the corpse of a 3rd-level Star Realm martial artist was a piece of cake for him. It only took him a few seconds to swallow and refine the corpse. My cultivation has increased by a lot. If I can kill a few more high-level Star Realm martial artists, I won't even need yuan stones to help my cultivation. I'll just kill them and break through my cultivation. Feeling the rising yuan power in his dantian, Feyrin licked his dry lips. There were about 7 or 8 black-clothed men who came to assassinate him this time, and all of them had high-level Star Realm cultivation. If he swallowed and refined all of their corpses, his yuan power cultivation would increase by about 30%. It should be known that the total amount of yuan power Feyrin needed for each breakthrough was several times that of an ordinary martial artist. Increasing his total amount of yuan power by 30% in an instant was already a godly speed of cultivation. After all, it was extremely difficult for an ordinary high-level Star Realm martial artist to break through one level. It would take them years or even decades. Boom, boom. Circulating his yuan power, Feyrin turned it into a ball of flame. In the next moment, he burned the black-clothed man's corpse and turned it into a pile of black ash. As for the belongings left behind by the black-clothed man, he also took them. Although there were only some low-grade yuan stones and secret hidden weapons, it was better than nothing. After dealing with the black-clothed man's corpse, Feyrin took the opportunity to attack. He plundered the rest of the black-clothed men's corpses. At the same time, he refined and swallowed the remaining life essence. Finally, he burned the corpses to remove all traces. His method was clean and efficient. This time I've gained quite a lot. If these people come to die 2 more times, I should be able to break through to the 5th level of the Star Realm. After completely stabilizing the yuan power in his dantian, Feyrin exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His eyes were clear and bright. Although the black-clothed men's assassination had failed, he knew in his heart that they would definitely not give up so easily. There was a high chance that he would be attacked again, and the opponents he would face would be even stronger. In a dense forest on the outskirts of the Imperial City, why isn't he back yet? Xiahou Ba, who was dressed in a black robe, was standing with his hands behind his back. His expression was grave, and no one knew what he was waiting for. Behind him stood a dozen or so black-clothed men with impressive skills. All of them had aggressive auras, and seemed to be the elites of the Shadow Guard. Could it be that something happened? No, that brat's cultivation is only at the 1st level of the Star Realm. He can't be their match. Xiahou Ba's heart skipped a beat. In the next moment, his brows were tightly knitted together. In order to deal with Feyrin, the Shadow Guard he had sent out could be said to be a powerful lineup. The weakest among them was at the first level of the Star Realm. There were also 4 at the second level of the Star Realm, and the leader of the Shadow Guard was at the third level of the Star Realm. With the Shadow Guard's strength and methods, even a veteran martial artist at the 4th level of the Star Realm would be severely injured if they underestimated the enemy, let alone a lone cultivator at the 1st level of the Star Realm like Fei Rin. They might even fail miserably and be killed on the spot. Therefore, Xiahou Ba was very confident that Fei Rin wouldn't be able to escape this time. However, half a day had passed, and the Shadow Guard he had sent out still hadn't shown any signs of movement. They had completely lost contact, as if they had vanished into thin air. Lord Xiahou, something has happened. The third team of the Shadow Guard has been completely annihilated. Not even their corpses are left. At this moment, a black figure rushed over from nearby. Then, he knelt on one knee and cupped his fist to Xiahou Ba in front of him. His tone was panicked. What? Hearing this, Xiahou Ba's expression changed drastically. In the next moment, he raised his hand and grabbed the collar of the black-clothed man in front of him. He couldn't help but widen his eyes and yell in shock. Say that again. The third team has been annihilated. There were 8-star realm martial artists, and one of them was at the 3rd level of the Star Realm. Who exactly is it that possesses such cultivation and strength? As his voice fell, Xiahou Ba's face turned completely ashen. Although he was one of Chu Wen's trusted subordinates, the Shadow Guard was an elite force. It would be a pity if even one of them died, let alone a team that had been annihilated. If Chu Wen knew about such a huge loss, he wouldn't be able to escape punishment. I'm not sure. The scene has been burned to ashes. However, we can conclude that the assassination target's strength is at least at the 5th level of the Star Realm. Seeing Xiahou Ba fly into a rage in front of him, the black-clothed man trembled as he spoke. His body couldn't help but tremble. It was obvious that he was scared out of his wits. After all, the Shadow Guard had been active for many years and had never suffered such a heavy loss. Trash! Looking at the black-clothed man again, Xiahou Ba was also furious. He immediately lifted his foot and kicked him to the side. His expression was as dark as stagnant water. There's a change in the plan. Looks like I'll have to report to the prince. The next morning in the Imperial City, as dawn broke, Fei Rin woke up from his cultivation state and rushed to the central square. Today was the day of the semi-finals of the World Heroes competition. Although he had gone through a huge battle last night, it didn't affect Fei Rin's state of mind. His strength was still at its peak. Chapter 2:16. Although the martial arts competition had yet to begin at the Central Plaza, the crowd outside the plaza was bustling with activity. The atmosphere was extremely fiery. The upper echelons of the various large sects, as well as Emperor Chu Tianyang, were all present, seemingly waiting for the martial arts competition to begin. Brother Song, you're here early too? His gaze swept through the crowd and finally landed on a familiar figure. It was Song Shirluan from the Song family. In the next moment, Fei Rin flew in front of him. Brother Fei. When he saw that it was Fei Rin, Song Shirluan turned his head around. His expression froze as he grinned. How was it? Did you advance? Fei Rin nodded and asked. After defeating Li Yunfeng yesterday, he didn't stay in the central square, so he didn't know the result of Song Shirluan's battle. I was a bit unlucky and met a tough opponent. Faced with Fei Rin's probing, Song Shirluan's face froze. Then, he shook his head awkwardly and sighed. It seemed that he had not made it to the semi-finals on the second day of the Tournament of Heroes. How could this be? Fei Rin was surprised. After all, there were more than 500 participants on the first day of the preliminaries, and their strength varied. Song Shirluan's cultivation was at the second level of the Star Realm. As long as he didn't meet the elite disciples of the 3-9 ranks of the great families or the Crown Prince Chu Jioxing, he should have advanced to the second day of the preliminaries. However, Song Shirluan was still eliminated. Other than his lack of personal strength, he might have been unlucky to meet a strong opponent right off the bat. If you can't beat him with your second level of the Star Realm cultivation, Your opponent must be at least at the third level of the star realm. Who's that guy? Fei Ren rubbed his chin and asked again. Although Song Sherluin was eliminated, he didn't want to comfort him. After all, the world of martial artists was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. Every participant of the World Hero competition was no ordinary person. Without strength, it would be pointless to say anything. Gu Qingmu, the #1 genius of the pavilion of Prince Tung. Song Sherluin gritted his teeth and said unwillingly. Originally, with his cultivation at the second level of the star realm, coupled with the martial techniques and trump cards in his hands, there is no need for him to fear a cultivator at the same level as him. In fact, he could even contend with a cultivator at the third level of the star realm. However, the plans of the heavens were no match for the plans of man. On the first day of the preliminaries, they had drawn Gu Qingmu as their opponent. Not only was Gu Qingmu the #1 genius of the pavilion of Prince Tung, but he was also extremely powerful. His cultivation was at the 6th level of the star realm, and it was difficult for him to find a worthy opponent among cultivators of the same level. Moreover, Song Sherluin was only at the 2nd level of the star realm, so he was naturally no match for Gu Qingmu. So, it's him. As soon as he finished speaking, Fei Ren also agreed. Since he had encountered Song Sherluin, he could only admit that he was unlucky. Song Sherluin's cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the star realm. Even if Fei Ren's cultivation was 1 level higher, he would still be no match for Song Sherluin. After all, not all warriors were like Fei Ren, who had the refining Immortal Cauldron, Azure Dragon Halberd, Universe 8 Trigrams flag, and a series of treasures. Moreover, he cultivated the legendary 9th level cultivation method. Old brother, it seems like you're really unlucky. When he thought of this, Fei Ren also joked. It's fine. I didn't really want to participate in the World Conference of Heroes anyway, but my old man insisted that I come. I'll just treat it as training. Moreover, I won't lose out if I can fight with the #1 genius of the pavilion of Prince Tung. On the other hand, Brother Fei, you have a high chance of entering the top ranks. With your strength, these people are no match for you at all. Now that his path of advancement had been destroyed, Song Sherluin was very open-minded. He also scratched his head and chuckled as if he had expected this. Moreover, he was very confident in Fei Ren. After all, Fei Ren's valiant strength had shocked everyone in the princess residence. It had even caused Princess Lu Yuan, Chu Qian, to personally stop him. Although Song Sherluin didn't know the final outcome of the battle, this achievement alone was enough to earn his respect. I hope so. When he heard this, Fei Ren didn't have much confidence. He also smiled faintly. At the same time, the competition finally officially began. After the first day of the preliminaries, there were about 200 people who had advanced to the semifinals. Moreover, unlike the first day of the preliminaries, in the semifinals, every contestant had to win 3 matches in a row to advance. This was also the 3rd day of the finals. Winning 3 matches in a row. That's not difficult. Fei Ren clenched his fists tightly under his sleeves. In the next moment, he leaped out and arrived in front of the burly man in a martial robe who was in charge of judging. The rules were the same as yesterday's preliminaries. The opponents in the semifinals were also chosen by drawing numbers. Number 88, this number is quite auspicious. Looking at the number ball in his hand, Fei Ren grinned. According to the rules, his next opponent would be number 89. Moreover, after winning, he would have to draw 2 more numbers. Although it was a bit troublesome, it was still considered fair. In a short while, all the numbers had been drawn, and the first round of the competition had officially begun. At the center of the square, 2 figures were facing each other from a distance. They were 2 young geniuses from the Imperial City. One of them had a delicate face, and his left hand was holding a spirit treasure similar to a folding fan. His expression was serious, and his origin power had reached the 3rd level of the star realm. Zhou family of the Imperial City, Zhou Yafu. A strong wind blew across the square. This young genius slightly gestured at his opponent not far away and spoke in a probing tone. He came from a Zhou family, a first-rate force in the Imperial City, and was a direct descendant of a Zhou family. However, his opponent wasn't weak either. His origin power cultivation had reached the 3rd level of the Star Realm. Moreover, he came from the Qingyuan sect, one of the 3-9 ranks of the great families. Therefore, he didn't dare to underestimate him. Qingyuan sect, Zhang Jie. Faced with Zhou Yafu's probing, this young genius from the Qingyuan sect also cupped his hands. However, there was a trace of disdain on his face, as if he didn't take Zhou Yafu seriously at all. This guy, sensing the disdain in his opponent's tone, Zhou Yafu's face darkened. His left hand, which was holding the folding fan, quietly tightened, as if there was a hidden anger in his heart. This guy comes from the Qingyuan sect. I wonder what trump cards he has. Although Zhou Yafu was indignant, he didn't choose to make the first move. Instead, he stared at Zhang Jie in a covetous manner. After all, his opponent came from the Qingyuan sect, one of the 9 ranks of the great families. The martial arts and cultivation methods he cultivated were definitely not weak. Coward, let me see what you're made of. Seeing this, the disdain on Zhang Jie's face became even more apparent. In the next moment, his body shot out explosively, and, at the same time, he raised his hand and blasted toward Zhou Yafu's face. As his origin power surged, a strong wind whistled in an instant. It seemed to be quite powerful. Chapter 217. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Zhou Yafu's face turned serious when he saw Zhang Jie attack first. He gathered all his origin power and punched out. Both he and his opponent were at the 3rd level of the Star Realm, so it was hard to predict who would emerge victorious if they didn't use any martial arts or spirit treasures. Moreover, this was a competition of strength and foundation. If one of them had more solid physical strength and origin power, then they might have the upper hand. Bang! As the fist and palm collided, a dull and loud sound was heard. The next moment, Zhou Yafu's figure was seen retreating rapidly. At the same time, he used the recoil force to stop his body. It seemed that he had suffered a small loss in this confrontation. What a powerful force! As expected of a genius disciple from the Qingyuan sect, this guy can severely injure a martial artist of the same level, even without using any martial arts. Gently rubbing his sore fists, Zhou Yafu's expression was solemn. Although this exchange was only a simple test, he also knew that Zhang Jie's strength was clearly above his own. If he were to face Zhang Jie head-on, it was very likely that he would not be his opponent. Zhou, is that all you've got? After forcing Zhou Yafu back with a single palm strike, Zhang Jie also grinned. It was obvious that he was confident that Zhou Yafu would lose without a doubt. Although he and Zhou Yafu were both at the 3rd level of the Star Realm, he was cultivating the Qingyuan 10 Directions technique, the ultimate cultivation technique of the Qingyuan sect. Not only was his cultivation of origin power solid and vigorous, but his physical strength was also astonishingly powerful. He was several times stronger than ordinary cultivators of the same level, and there were few who could match him among his peers. The Qingyuan 10 Direction technique was the signature technique of the 9 ranks of the great families of the Qingyuan sect. It was a 4th grade technique. On the other hand, although Zhou Yafu came from the Zhou family, a first-rate force in the imperial city, he only cultivated an ordinary 3rd grade technique. The gap between them was obvious. Damn it! Zhou Yafu's face darkened at Zhang Jie's provocation. In the next moment, strands of origin power surged out of his body. He was obviously angered by Zhang Jie's repeated provocations and didn't plan to hold back anymore. Fire rained from the sky. With a loud shout, the folding fan in Zhou Yafu's hand changed once again. Soon after, it swept through the air, and a large amount of fiery red origin power instantly swept out, rushing straight into the clouds like a fiery wind soaring into the sky. Its might was vast, and it caused the numerous spectating martial artists' faces to turn cold. This is quasi-rank 4 martial arts. Good lad. Looks like this Zhou Yafu is serious. As a direct descendant of the Zhou family, a first-class power in the capital, although his cultivation method is not as good as that Qingyuan sect disciple, Zhou Yafu's martial arts are not bad. Everyone outside the arena was discussing animatedly, and they couldn't help but exclaim in low voices. Obviously, they were also attracted by the intense battle on the field. Brother Fei, who do you think will win? Not far away, Song Shirluan, who was watching the battle from a distance, also had a slight change in expression. He then retracted his gaze and looked at Fei Ran. He had to admit that Zhou Yafu's attack was very powerful, and even he might not be able to withstand it. If he took it head-on, he might be seriously injured. It's hard to say. That Qingyuan sect disciple, Zhang Jie, is practicing a rank 4 martial arts. He might also have a few powerful martial arts in his hands, or even some other trump cards. It might not be so easy for this Zhou family disciple to win against him. In the face of Song Shirluan's question, Fei Ran took a quick glance, then shook his head and said, although a battle of this level did not interest him, with his eyesight, he could roughly make out the situation with just a quick glance. If Zhou Yafu did not have any other trump cards, it would be very difficult for him to turn the tide with just a quasi-4th rank martial art. In the central square. Come on. In the face of the fire rain, Zhang Jie also roared. Then, he clenched his fists, and a large amount of origin power gushed out from his body. He directly rushed towards Zhou Yafu, without any intention of dodging, as if he wanted to exchange injuries with injuries. Boom! Rumble! A large amount of fire rain fell, then landed on Zhang Jie's protective origin power. The two different origin powers collided fiercely, then completely exploded. Immediately, a cloud of dust rose in the central square, and at the same time, his figure was drowned out. Is this guy crazy? Seeing Zhang Jie take his strongest attack head-on, Zhou Yafu's face was filled with shock, and his eyes were filled with shock. His heavenly fire rain was a quasi-grade 4 martial technique. Coupled with his 3rd-level star realm cultivation, even a 4th-level star realm cultivator wouldn't dare to face it head-on if he used his full strength, let alone Zhang Jie, who was only at the 3rd-level star realm. Your strength is not bad, but it's already over. After a few breaths, before Zhou Yafu could react, an angry roar suddenly came from the cloud of dust. In the next moment, Zhang Jie's figure appeared again. Then, he rushed in front of Zhou Yafu, raised his hand, and blasted out. Not good. Zhou Yafu was about to dodge, but his opponent's attack was as fast as lightning, giving him no time to dodge. Bang! Under everyone's gaze, Zhang Jie's palm also fiercely imprinted on Zhou Yafu's chest. In the next moment, his origin power completely exploded, instantly sending Zhou Yafu flying. His body fell to the ground, not far away like a kite with a broken string. Pucci! Zhou Yafu spat out a mouthful of blood after suffering a heavy blow. His face instantly became extremely pale, and he could not get up from the ground for a moment. His originally pale face also became extremely haggard, and he no longer had his previous demeanor and aura. You! How can you be so strong? Zhou Yafu's face was filled with shock as he struggled to get up from the ground. He looked at Zhang Jie again, who was not far away, with a pair of horrified eyes. He originally thought that there was a gap in strength between him and Zhang Jie, but he never thought that the gap would be so big. He actually had no power to fight back against Zhang Jie's defensive counterattack. He saw Zhang Jie standing still on the ground. Other than his slightly tattered clothes and a few slight wounds on his cheeks and hands, he did not suffer any serious injuries. Moreover, his aura did not decrease at all. It was obvious that he still had some strength left. Surname Zhou, it's just that you're too weak. Zhang Jie shook his head. After severely injuring Zhou Yafu with one blow, Zhang Jie did not follow up with another attack. His face was still full of disdain, as if he felt that Zhou Yafu was not worthy of his attack. Is this the strength of a Qingyuan sect disciple? As his voice fell, Zhou Yafu's originally pale face also surged with humiliation and unwillingness. Although Zhang Jie in front of him was very arrogant, he did have the strength and capital to act tough. I admit defeat. Thinking of this, Zhou Yafu also clenched his teeth, then secretly clenched his fists and said unwillingly. His tone was very low. At present, he was seriously injured, and his origin power consumption was huge. If he continued to fight, his chances of winning were not high. The most important thing was that Zhang Jie only suffered a slight injury after taking his full blow head-on. If he stubbornly fought back, it was very likely that he would lose his life in the end. It was not worth it. Chapter 218. At least you know what's good for you. Seeing Zhou Yafu admit defeat, Zhang Jie withdrew the origin energy in his palm and turned to leave. Although he was strong enough to kill Zhou Yafu, the Qingyuan sect and the Zhou family of the imperial city had no grudge against each other. Moreover, they had to win 2 more matches in a row to advance to the finals. The warriors who could advance to the semi-finals were generally strong, so Zhang Jie didn't want to waste his origin energy here. Next time, I'll definitely advance to the finals in the next World Hero competition. Zhou Yafu took a deep look at Zhang Jie's back as he spat in a low voice. He thought to himself unwillingly, and then left the place in a sorry state. First match, Zhang Jie of the Qingyuan sect wins. The outcome of the battle had been decided. The burly man in the martial arts robe nodded slightly and announced the result. In his eyes, although Zhou Yafu was not weak and was also a young genius of the imperial city, he was still weaker than the disciple of the Qingyuan sect, one of the 3-9 ranks of the great families. Zhou Yafu's cultivation methods and martial arts were superior, and he had a strong foundation. Brother Fei, you have good eye. Zhou Yafu is indeed no match for Zhang Jie, Song Shiluan sighed. He originally thought that Zhou Yafu could fight with Zhang Jie for hundreds of rounds or even be locked in a stalemate. He didn't expect Zhang Jie to be so strong that he defeated Zhou Yafu, who was at the 3rd level of the Star Realm, in just a few rounds. In addition to cultivation methods and martial arts, the Qingyuan sect disciples' physical strength also crushed Zhou Yafu's, so this person's defeat is justified. Hearing this, Fei Ren just shook his head and smiled. He had seen through the strength of the two from the beginning. Perhaps in the eyes of the spectators, Zhou Yafu and Zhang Jie's strength seemed to be on par, but the difference between them was like heaven and earth. As a disciple of the Qingyuan sect, Zhang Jie's comprehensive strength was at least twice as strong as Zhou Yafu's. With this guy's strength, he may advance to the finals tomorrow. Probably, it depends on his luck. Song Shiluan sighed again, but Fei Ren didn't speculate too much. He only cared about who his opponent was, and the stronger the better. The path of martial artists was to nurture battle with battle. For ordinary warriors, the cultivation speed could be greatly increased with the help of superior cultivation methods and primordial stones. However, for Fei Ren, fighting with some powerful opponents could also be used to gain experience and even improve his cultivation. After all, he had the refining Immortal Cauldron, the most precious treasure of Immortal Tao. After the first battle ended, more and more contestants came forward to battle. Among them, there were fewer loose cultivators. Most of them were disciples from various clans and sects in the imperial city. The atmosphere was fiery and intense. Large amounts of origin energy collided with each other, and at the same time, it emitted waves of aftershocks and shock waves. Make way. Don't be affected by the aftermath of the competition, or you'll have to bear the consequences. Although most of the spectators present were martial artists, there were also some powerless commoners. In order to maintain the order of the competition and not harm the innocent, some soldiers from the Steel Corps and the constables from the Imperial Court also set up a cordon separating the entire central square from the outside world. At the same time, on the tower above the central square, my beloved subjects, what do you think of the strength of these young people? Chu Tianyang was still high up in the air. He looked down at the geniuses who were fighting fiercely below and asked, although the World Heroes competition was held every 5 years, the strength of the participants this time was much stronger than before. The overall strength of the participants had increased a lot. Young geniuses who were at least 3rd or 4th level of the Star Realm were not rare, and there were also many young geniuses who were at least 5th level of the Star Realm. There were at least 30 of them. Your Majesty, there are new talents in every generation. If nothing unexpected happens, these young people will become the heroes of the Dachu dynasty in the future. In my opinion, the rise of the Dachu dynasty will be very promising. As soon as he finished speaking, an elder of the Qingyuan sect cupped his hands and said humbly, although the relationship between the Qingyuan sect and the imperial family was average, and they were not as highly regarded as the Lingjian school, the 9 ranks of the great families still belong to the imperial family in name, including him and the sect master of the Qingyuan sect, Su Tianxing, and the others. They were all Chu Tianyang subjects. Naturally, they had to follow his lead. Moreover, apart from Chu Tianyang, who was a half-step martial master, the power of the Chu imperial family was not weaker than that of the 9 ranks of the great families. In fact, it was even slightly stronger. Your Majesty, the Dachu dynasty's national strength is getting stronger day by day. In time, we may have a chance to surpass Dongling province and trample it under our feet. Not only this elder of the Qingyuan sect, but Su Tianxing also stepped forward and said solemnly. Obviously, he had the same opinion as the other party. Su Tianxing, this old man, I didn't expect him to be a sly old fox. This flattery is good, but it's useless. Soon, this world will have a new master. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the unsmiling Su Tianxing beside him. He saw that Lin Feng's expression was as usual, and his gaze was deep and calm. It seemed that he was not interested in the competition below and had other plans in his mind. Yes, the Dachu dynasty has a chance to rise. Your Majesty will definitely be able to destroy Dongling province's prestige. Your Majesty is wise, unparalleled in the world. At this time, a few of the pavilion of Prince Tong's upper echelons who did not speak looked at each other, and then said one after another. Although Lin Feng, as the pavilion master, did not express his opinion, this did not prevent them from flattering him to win Chu Tianyang's favor. That's right, I think so too. In the face of the compliments from Su Tianxing and the other sect elders, Chu Tianyang also laughed heartily. He seemed to be in a good mood. At the same time, the battles in the central square below became more and more intense. Soon, nearly half of the contestants were eliminated. At this time, there were only slightly more than 100 contestants left. Most of the eliminated geniuses had fallen in the second battle. Only a small number of geniuses could win all 3 battles and advance to the finals. It's finally time for me to make a move. In the center of the square, Fei Ren's figure was standing straight, and opposite him was a bald man holding a giant axe. The bald man had a long scar on his cheek, and his appearance was rough and thick. He seemed to be very valiant, and at first glance, one could tell that he was not someone to be trifled with. Kid, I see that you're young and have a good cultivation base, so I don't want to kill you. If you know what's good for you, admit defeat and get out of here. I can let you go. Sensing that Fei Ren's aura was only at the 2nd level of the star realm, the bald man immediately became more confident. At the same time, he raised the giant axe in his hand high. The sharp axe flickered with a cold light, adding to his murderous aura. Although the bald man was a bit arrogant, his cultivation base was not weak. It was infinitely close to the 4th level of the star realm. In addition, the giant axe in his hand was a tier 3 spirit treasure. Moreover, the axe had sharp barbs on all 4 sides. When the axe was used at full strength, it would be very difficult for the opponent to dodge. Do it. However, what the bald man did not expect was that Fei Ren was even more arrogant than him. At this time, he raised his hand and gestured. Obviously, he did not take the bald man's threat seriously. Chapter 219. Arrogant Brat. With an angry roar, the bald man shot out like an arrow. At the same time, he swung his giant axe at Fei Ren's chest. Swoosh! As the axe swung through the air, gusts of wind whistled through the air. The cultivation of the bald man's origin power was infinitely close to the 4th level of the star realm. In addition, the giant axe in his hand was a tier 3 spirit treasure. When he was in a state of rage, the power of his attack was extraordinary. It was enough to cut an ordinary third-level Star Realm martial artist in half and separate their heads from their bodies. Child's play. As the attack approached, Fei Ren's expression was as calm as water. In the next moment, he tapped his foot on the ground and slid backward. He instantly dodged the bald man's powerful axe. His figure was as light and agile as a swallow. Bang! The sharp giant axe fiercely smashed into the ground of the central square. Origin power swept out and wreaked havoc. In an instant, it broke the asphalt boulder under his feet and turned it into a pile of dust. At the same time, it left a huge pit where Fei Ren had been, as if to show that the power of this attack was extraordinary. What? He actually dodged it. The bald man's expression changed slightly when his axe missed. His expression instantly became serious. Fei Ren's cultivation was only at the second level of the Star Realm, while the bald man's was infinitely close to the fourth level of the Star Realm. Logically speaking, the bald man should be able to crush Fei Ren with his cultivation level advantage. However, the bald man had never imagined that Fei Ren's speed would be so terrifying. It's time to end this. After easily dodging the bald man's axe, strands of golden origin energy gushed out from Fei Ren's body. In the next moment, his figure actually flickered and disappeared, leaving behind only a blurry afterimage on the spot, as if he had teleported. Oh no! Seeing Fei Ren disappear in an instant, the bald man was shocked. At the same time, he pulled back his giant axe to defend himself. The protective origin power all over his body was also activated to the extreme. 5 Mountain King capturing palm. With an angry roar, Fei Ren's figure appeared in front of the bald man in the next moment. At the same time, his right palm heavily blasted forward. Immediately, golden light scattered in all directions. An enormous origin power shock wave instantly exploded. Bang! Rumble. Accompanied by a boom, the large axe soul treasure in the bald man's hand was also forcefully sent flying by the Yuan power shockwave. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body flew backwards like a broken sack. Although the bald man's reaction was very timely, under the huge gap in strength, there was no use at all. In just a face-to-face confrontation, he was blasted away by Fei Ren's palm. He had no power to resist at all. Boom! His figure somersaulted a few times in the air and finally fell heavily to the ground. The bald man's clothes were tattered, and there was a bruise on his chest. It was obvious that he had suffered Fei Ren's palm strike. How could this be? Your cultivation base? Struggling to get up from the ground, the bald man had a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. The next moment, his eyes were filled with horror. An instant kill. It was obvious that Fei Ren's origin power cultivation wasn't just at the second level of the Star Realm. It was far beyond his imagination. This brat is pretending to be weak. Thinking of this, the bald man's face suddenly became a little ugly. It seemed that he had been played in the palm of his hand from the very beginning. Fei Ren did not respond to the bald man's question. Seeing the bald man crawl up from the ground once again, Fei Ren also took a step forward and slowly walked towards the bald man. An incomparably tyrannical strand of golden yuan power once again rose from his right palm. Sir, I admit defeat. Please have mercy. Seeing that Fei Ren was about to attack again, the bald man was also covered in cold sweat. He immediately cried out in alarm and knelt down. It was obvious that he didn't dare to fight with Fei Ren again. His face was also extremely red, like a pig's liver. Right now, he was no match for Fei Ren at all. If he didn't admit defeat, it was very likely that he would lose his life. After all, this was the World Conference of Heroes, and there were no rules that prohibited participants from killing. 2 more rounds. Seeing that the bald man had knelt down and admitted defeat, Fei Ren wasn't surprised. He immediately withdrew the origin power around him, and his eyes were calm. With his current strength, he was able to fight against an ordinary cultivator of the 9th level of the Star Realm. Even some of the geniuses of the same generation who could fight against cultivators of a higher level were no match for him, let alone this bald man, who was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm. Brother Fei's strength is indeed shocking. Outside the arena, seeing that Fei Run had easily defeated the bald man, Song Sherlin, who was watching the battle, sighed inwardly. After all, his opponent was someone who could instantly kill the elite disciple of the pavilion of Prince Tung, Chung Li. It was naturally easy for him to deal with a loose cultivator who was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm. Just after the bald man left the arena, another figure streaked across the sky and landed steadily in the center of the plaza. The newcomer had a delicate face and wore a white martial robe. It was the Qingyuan sect's disciple, Zhang Jie. This brat is a little strong. I can't be careless. Looking at Fei Run, who was standing quietly not far away, Zhang Jie's expression was solemn. Just like his opponent, he had already won a round. He only needed to win 2 more rounds to advance to the next round of the finals. This battle could be said to be very important. You're no match for me. Looking at Zhang Jie, Fei Run only stretched out a finger and shook it lightly. It wasn't that he was arrogant. Although Zhang Jie was from the Qingyuan sect, which was one of the 9 ranks of the great families, his strength was only about the same as Wang Xinxing from the Steel Corps. His strength was at most among the disciples of the Qingyuan sect, and he was no match for Fei Run. You'll know after you try. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Jie was slightly angry. The next moment, he flew out and punched toward Fei Run's head. His method was vicious and his attack was tricky. Although he knew that Fei Run's strength was not weak and that he was most likely no match for him, as a disciple of the 9 ranks of the great families, it was difficult for Zhang Jie to stay calm when he was looked down upon. He was immediately furious. Break! Seeing Zhang Jie's punch coming, Fei Run did not retreat. Instead, he moved forward and blasted forward with his palm. Suddenly, a golden light flashed, and a brownish-yellow, Yuanli giant palm swept out. Its momentum was like a rainbow. Bang! Boom! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the Yuanli giant palm instantly broke Zhang Jie's fist strength and Yuanli shield. The next moment, it landed on his body heavily and sent him flying. He spat out blood and fell to the ground. Obviously, he had completely lost his combat strength. Another one-hit kill. Seeing Zhang Jie's defeat, the spectators were shocked. After all, the other party was a genius from the Qingyuan sect, which was the 9 ranks of the great families. He was not an ordinary individual cultivator, but he was still vulnerable against Fei Run. It was terrifying. Su Tianxing, is this all the strength of your Qingyuan sect's disciples? You actually lost to a lone cultivator. TSK, TSK. On top of the city gate, Lin Feng grinned when he saw that Zhang Jie was defeated and killed in one move. His tone of voice became somewhat playful. You can't blame others for your lack of strength and cultivation. Su Tianxing frowned slightly in the face of Lin Feng's words. The next moment, he said coldly with a faintly unpleasant expression. Chapter 220. Sect Master, isn't Lin Feng a little too arrogant? Seeing Lin Feng ridiculing the disciples of the Qingyuan sect in public, a Qingyuan sect elder next to him frowned slightly, and then secretly transmitted a message to Su Tianxing. That guy named Fei Run is not weak. It's normal that Zhang Jie is not his opponent. There's nothing to say. Moreover, there are dozens of disciples from our Qingyuan sect participating in this competition. It's normal for 1 or 2 people to be eliminated. Glancing at the Qingyuan sect elder, Su Tianxing's face was calm, and he also slowly replied with a calm tone. After all, Lin Feng was the king of medicine of the Dacha dynasty, the only level 4 alchemist, and was favored by Emperor Chu Tianyang. Su Tianxing knew that he couldn't do anything to him. Moreover, as the leader of the 9 ranks of the great families, Lin Feng's strength was not weak either. As a level 4 alchemist, Lin Feng's mental power had reached the 4th level of the profound martial realm, and he had mastered a unique mental martial art. Although Su Tianxing was a level 10-star realm martial artist, he was not confident that he could defeat him. On the other hand, although Lin Feng's mental power was good, it would be difficult for him to defeat Su Tianxing. The strength of the two was almost the same, and it would be difficult to determine the winner in a short time. As for the Lingjian school's first seat, Run Jiannan, who had not yet appeared, he was slightly stronger than the two, but not by much. Secmaster, Su Sun has won 2 rounds in a row. If there are no accidents, she will definitely advance to the finals. Besides Su Sun, most of the other disciples of the Qingyuan sect have also advanced. Our disciples will definitely be able to squeeze into the top 20 in this world hero competition. Hearing this, the Qingyuan sect elder also transmitted a message again, as if he was paying attention to the battle below. I hope so. Although Su Sun is not weak, she broke through too quickly, and her foundation is not stable. Moreover, she has just broken through to the 10th level of the Qian Yuan martial spiritual technique, so it is difficult for her to fully exert its power. This is what I am most worried about. Su Tianxing narrowed his eyes. The next moment, he looked down at the central square with a thoughtful expression. At the same time, just as Fei Run defeated Zhang Jie, the battles of the other participants were also extremely intense. From time to time, someone would be blasted out of the arena or even die on the spot, causing the air to be filled with the smell of burning gunpowder. The central square was very large and could accommodate dozens of people fighting at the same time. Naturally, there was more than one referee. Apart from the burly man in the martial robe, there were also a few 8th-level Star Realm experts in charge of refereeing. These experts were all from the imperial court and the imperial family. Their strength was not to be underestimated. Naturally, they would not be affected by the aftershocks of the fights between the participants. Furthermore, they would be able to give a fair verdict. Thanks for letting me win. In the square, Su Sun, who was dressed in white, saluted a black-haired young man who was kneeling on one knee. The next moment, he turned around and left. Including this battle, he had already won 3 consecutive battles to enter the finals. There was no point in staying here. This guy is really a monster. He deserves to be the new first disciple of the Qingyuan sect. I think only that guy Gu Qingmu can fight against him. Seeing Su Sun's figure gradually disappear into the distance, the black-haired young man's face was filled with shock. His origin power cultivation had reached the 5th level of the Star Realm, and he was also from the pavilion of Prince Tung from the 9th ranks of the Great Families. However, he was still no match for Su Sun. He was defeated in 3 moves. Bang! Just as Su Sun defeated his opponent, the first disciple of the Lingjian school, Run Jiannan, also shone brightly. He also defeated his opponent with a single sword strike. His straight body was emitting a strong sword intent. His aura was like a rainbow, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Round 23, Run Jiannan wins. Round 36, Su Sun wins. Seeing that the outcome was decided, the referee on the side announced the results. Su Sun from the Qingyuan sect and Run Jiannan from the Lingjian school had also successfully won consecutive battles and entered the finals tomorrow. In addition, the two of them had easily defeated their opponents in 3 consecutive battles. There were many 5th-level Star Realm geniuses among their peers. They could be said to be very powerful. These 2 guys are strong opponents. After leaving the arena, Fei Run rubbed his nose when he saw Su Sun and Run Jiannan, who were in the limelight on the other side. These 2 people's origin power cultivation was at the 6th level of the Star Realm, and their strength was no weaker than an 8th-level Star Realm cultivator. Other than the number 1 young disciple of the pavilion of Prince Tung, Gu Qingmu, and the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing, they were one of Fei Ren's few strong opponents in this World Heroes competition. Moreover, to be honest, other than these people, Fei Ren didn't care about the other opponents. Other than these 4 people, the others are not worth mentioning. I'll be the champion of the World Heroes competition. Fei Ren secretly clenched his fists. When he thought of the huge rewards he would receive if he became the champion, his eyes narrowed slightly. His expression was faintly moved. In the martial arts world of the Dacha dynasty, almost everyone knew that the top 20 contestants of every World Heroes competition would receive large amounts of rewards. These rewards were also known as prizes in the mouth of the outside world. They were usually collected by the imperial family in the 3 or 9 ranks of the great families. There was no lack of low-grade origin stones, high-grade spirit treasures, pills, and demon cores. There were even some good martial arts and cultivation methods. Moreover, the higher one's ranking was, the more rewards one would receive in the end, not to mention the champion of the World Heroes competition. Therefore, even Fei Rin couldn't remain calm. After all, he could pick up a windfall for free, so why not? Even if these martial arts, spirit treasures, and pills Fei Rin couldn't use in the end, he could exchange them for origin stones and demon cores. He could absorb them and increase his origin power cultivation. It was a win-win situation. On the other side, the battle was still ongoing. Bang! Just after Chu Jiuxing defeated his opponent with a single palm strike, a black-robed young man jumped onto the stage. However, his expression was somewhat ugly and awkward. After all, his opponent was none other than the current crown prince of the Dachu dynasty. "You're no match for me. I don't want to hurt you. Just admit defeat." Chu Jiuxing withdrew his palm and glanced at the black-robed young man across from him. Then he shook his head and sighed. The black-robed young man before him was similar in strength to his previous opponent. They were both around the 4th level of the Star Realm. The difference in strength was too great, and the former was no match for him at all. Moreover, as the crown prince of the Dacha dynasty, Chu Jiuxing had always been kind. If it wasn't necessary, he didn't want to see blood. "Your Highness is extraordinarily brave. I know I'm no match for you." Facing Chu Jiuxing's words, the black-robed young man knew his own strength. He immediately cupped his fists, admitted defeat, and left. Round 40, Chu Jiuxing wins. Seeing Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing win without a fight, an inner court expert in charge of refereeing announced the result on the spot. He didn't seem surprised at all. After all, everyone present had witnessed Chu Jiuxing's strength. He was completely capable of killing his way into the top 3 and even becoming the champion. Moreover, among the younger generation of the Dacha dynasty, there had always been a saying that there were 4 great geniuses. Apart from the pavilion of Prince Tang's Gu Qingmu, the Qingyuan sect's Su Sun, and the Lingjian school's Ren Jianan, the Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing was also one of them. Moreover, he was the strongest of the 4 great geniuses. Chapter 221. His Highness the Crown Prince won. Including this match, he has already won 3 matches in a row. It's enough for him to advance to the finals tomorrow. It's just as Pavilion Master Lin said. With His Highness the Crown Prince's strength, the champion of this World Hero competition is likely to be His Highness the Crown Prince. Seeing Chu Jiuxing scare off his opponents with a single sentence, a few sect elders sighed emotionally. Then, they looked at the Chu Emperor, Chu Tianyang, with flattery in their voices. Most of them came from the Lingjian school and had close ties with the imperial family. Now, that Chu Jiuxing was in the limelight and they were in front of the emperor, Chu Tianyang. They naturally tried their best to curry favor with him. These people are too weak. They can't even force out half of Xing Er's strength. Moreover, most of them are itinerant cultivators. They're nothing. If they can make it to the finals, they'll be considered capable. In the face of the flattery from the surrounding sect elders, Chu Tianyang was very calm as he said indifferently. In this World Hero competition, compared to the geniuses of the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families and the disciples of the imperial family, the disciples of the other families and young itinerant cultivators were weaker. Their strength was generally 1 level lower. Chu Tianyang noticed this as well. Moreover, most of the battles in the semi-finals were almost over. Most of the people who had advanced to the finals were the geniuses of the 9 ranks of the great families and the disciples of the imperial family. There were very few itinerant cultivators who were as strong as Fei Ren and could defeat the disciples of the 9 ranks of the great families. There were only a few of them. Hence, Chu Tianyang's words were not without reason. Ordinary family disciples and itinerant cultivators who could make it to the finals of the World Hero competition were already very powerful. As for making it to the top 20 and receiving the rewards from the imperial family and the 3 and 9 ranks of the great families, most people did not even dare to think about it. Chu Jiuxing's strength seems to have increased again. Could it be that he has broken through to the 7th level of the Star Realm? Ren Jiannan's expression turned solemn as he watched Chu Jiuxing leave the arena. Just like his opponent, Ren Jiannan had also won 3 matches in a row to advance to the finals tomorrow. However, compared to his opponent, Ren Jiannan believed that his strength was far from being able to scare his opponent away with a single sentence. After all, they were all geniuses of the same generation, and they were all full of ambition. It would be difficult for them to submit to others easily. Moreover, Ren Jiannan, who was watching Chu Jiuxing's battle from below the stage, had clearly sensed an invisible aura coming from Chu Jiuxing's body. Moreover, his aura was as deep as an abyss, far more powerful than any of the other geniuses present. It wasn't something a 6th-level Star Realm cultivator could achieve. 7th level of the Star Realm. It's fine if he has a breakthrough in his cultivation base, but if Chu Jiuxing's cultivation method and martial arts also improve, then Su Sun, Gu Qingmu, and I might not be a match for him. Thinking about this, Ren Jiannan clenched his fists tightly and frowned. He was certain that his opponent's origin power cultivation had already broken through to the 7th level of the Star Realm. As for how much his strength had increased, it was still unknown. After all, after 3 consecutive battles, Chu Jiuxing had not even used 50% of his strength, and his opponent had been defeated. Chu Jiuxing, I'll definitely defeat you this time. At the same time, Su Sun also cast his gaze in Chu Jiuxing's direction. His eyes flickered with a fiery battle intent. When he was still an ordinary disciple of the Qingyuan sect, he had heard of Chu Jiuxing's deeds. As the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing could be said to be famous in the Dacha dynasty. He started cultivating origin power at the age of 8, broke through to the middle unity boundary at the age of 14, and stepped into the high star realm at the age of 20. He was a top-notch prodigy who did not care about anything. At the same time, he was also a mountain in the hearts of many martial artists. This is the 6th time. My Qinyuan martial spirit method has broken through to the 10th level. I definitely won't lose this time. When he thought of this, Su Sun also thought to himself, if he could defeat Chu Jiuxing in front of him and cross the mountain in his heart, his strength would become even stronger. Before becoming the number 1 young disciple of the Qingyuan sect, Su Sun had repeatedly challenged the crown prince, Chu Jiuxing. However, without exception, he had been defeated miserably. The best result was only forcing Chu Jiuxing to use 80% of his strength. Therefore, defeating Chu Jiuxing had gradually become one of his motivation for cultivation. Before the start of this World Hero competition, Su Sun had been defeated by Chu Jiuxing 6 times. Before this competition, Su Sun had secretly vowed that he would never fail a 7th time. He was determined to defeat Chu Jiuxing and get rid of his heart demon at the same time. In the central square, Fei Ren stood quietly with his hands crossed in front of his chest. There's still one more battle. I wonder who my opponent will be. Compared to the geniuses of other sects, his opponents were slightly weaker. Although he had defeated 2 people in a row, other than Zhang Jie from the Qingyuan sect, who had some strength, the other person was only a rogue cultivator. Therefore, he did not receive much attention. At this time, the focus of the competition was still on Chu Jiuxing, Su Sun, and Ren Jiannan, the top geniuses of the 9 ranks of the great families and the royal family. However, Fei Ren had never cared about these empty titles. He just wanted to end the battle quickly and advance to the finals tomorrow. Although these opponents in the semifinals were slightly stronger than the first day of the preliminary round, it was still SOSO. Next battle, Fei Ren versus Gu Qingmu. At this moment, one of the Imperial Palace's experts shouted loudly and announced the start of the next round of the competition. Gu Qingmu? I can't believe I met this guy. As the referee's voice fell, Fei Ren's face was also slightly stunned. The next moment, his eyes suddenly became fiery. His opponent was a young genius from the pavilion of Prince Tung from the 9 ranks of the great families. He was known as the #1 person in the younger generation of the Pavilion of Princeton. He was extremely powerful and was also one of the few opponents who could pose a threat to Fei Ren. Moreover, compared to Gu Qingmu, Fei Ren's previous opponents were simply a bunch of rotten fish and shrimp. They were not worth mentioning at all. If I can have a good fight with this kid, the effect will be better than the previous 10 battles. Fei Ren grinned. In the next moment, he secretly clenched his fists. At the same time, an extraordinary aura surged out of his body. It's starting. That guy called Fei Ren actually met Gu Qingmu. Gu Qingmu is the #1 genius of the Pavilion of Princeton. This Fei Ren is just a rogue cultivator. His origin power cultivation is only at the 4th level of the Star Realm. It's impossible for him to be his opponent. This kid is a little unlucky. That's right. This Fei Ren seems to have won 2 battles in a row. He only needs to win 1 more battle to advance to the finals. Of all the people he could have met, his opponent was Gu Qingmu. This can only be considered his bad luck. What a pity. At this moment, the spectators outside the arena had suddenly quieted down. After a few breaths of time, they exploded into an uproar as sounds of discussion arose without end. Amongst them, most of them didn't look favorably upon Fei Ren. After all, Gu Qingmu was the #1 disciple in the Pavilion of Prince Tang's younger generation, and Fei Ren was merely an unknown independent cultivator. Fei Ren, so it's the guy who defeated Zhang Jie. However, it's far from enough to defeat me with just this bit of strength. Gu Qingmu's expression was calm in the face of the discussions outside the arena. At the same time, he looked at Fei Ren, who was not far away. Just like his opponent, he had also won 2 battles in a row. He only needed to win 1 more battle to advance to the finals. Therefore, there was absolutely no reason for him to lose. Chapter 222. You're pretty strong. Compared to the other independent cultivators, you're a genius. With a leap, Gu Qingmu also arrived at the central square. His figure faced Fei Ren Yao, who was not far away. Up until now, none of the remaining contestants of the World Hero Tournament were weak. Even Fei Ren was no exception. Although Fei Ren was a rogue cultivator and his origin power was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm, he had defeated Zhang Jie from the Qingyuan sect, which was enough to earn Gu Qingmu's respect. However, you can't beat me with your current strength. Changing the topic, Gu Qingmu spoke again in a calm tone. Although Fei Ren's strength was enough for him to take him seriously, Gu Qingmu was the #1 genius of the Pavilion of Princeton. Not only had his cultivation reached the 6th level of the Star Realm, but he also cultivated top-notch martial arts. His overall strength was several times stronger than Zhang Jie's. Therefore, although Fei Ren's strength was not weak, Gu Qingmu did not think that Fei Ren could defeat him. In his heart, the only opponents that could make him use his full strength were Su Sun, Ren Jiannan, and the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing. Sorry, I'm definitely going to win this battle. Fei Ren grinned and didn't say anything in front of the arrogant Gu Qingmu. Just like his opponent, he couldn't afford to lose this battle. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to advance to the finals tomorrow. Although Gu Qingmu was the #1 genius of the Pavilion of Prince Tang and was far stronger than ordinary martial artists, Fei Ren wasn't weak either. With Fei Ren's current strength, he could even fight against a 9th-level Star Realm martial artist, let alone Gu Qingmu, who was only at the 6th level of the Star Realm. This kid is too arrogant. He dares to say he'll defeat Gu Qingmu. How is that possible? Yeah, I'm afraid this Fei Ren has lost his mind. That's Gu Qingmu we're talking about, the #1 genius of the Pavilion of Prince Tang, a 9th-ranked sect, and one of the 4 great geniuses of the Imperial City. In my opinion, Fei Ren defeated Zhang Jie from the Qingyuan sect. Why do I feel like he'll win in the end? Bullshit. Gu Qingmu will definitely win. Don't talk nonsense. Bastard, how dare you scold me? At the same time, compared to the tense and anxious atmosphere in the field, the spectating cultivators were also discussing animatedly. The smell of gunpowder in the air was not less. There were even a few cultivators who were arguing about who would win in the end, causing the scene to be chaotic for a while. Come on, I'll give you 3 moves, ignoring the clamor outside. Gu Qingmu's face was calm. The next moment, he raised his hand toward Fei Run. As the #1 genius of the pavilion of Prince Tung, and with the advantage of his cultivation base, he was confident that he would win this battle. Even if Fei Run made the first move, he would definitely not lose. Gu Qingmu had the pride of being a genius of a sect. Then I won't hold back. Fei Ren sneered. Seeing the confident look on Gu Qingmu's face, Fei Ren felt displeased in his heart. In the next moment, he flew out. At the same time, he raised his hand and slammed it towards Gu Qingmu. A brownish-yellow palm force appeared. So fast, a strong wind swept past. Gu Qingmu only saw a flash in front of his eyes. In the next moment, Fei Ren's attack was right in front of him. His expression changed slightly. Bang! In the blink of an eye, facing Fei Ren's rapidly approaching palm strike, Gu Qingmu raised both his hands to block it. At the same time, strands of protective yuan power gushed out from his body, forcefully blocking his opponent's powerful palm strike. Although he blocked Fei Ren's attack, the huge impact still caused Gu Qingmu's face to turn red. In the next moment, his body involuntarily retreated dozens of steps. Feeling the faint pain in his arm, Gu Qingmu's expression instantly became extremely serious. This guy's speed is not slower than a 7th-level Star Realm cultivator. Moreover, he has boundless strength. He's a formidable opponent. After the exchange of blows, Gu Qingmu realized that he had underestimated Fei Run. However, Fei Run had no intention of stopping. He took advantage of the situation and continued to attack. Second move. With a low shout, Fei Ren's arms suddenly emitted waves of scarlet gold light. Then, he swung his fists toward Gu Qingmu. Although it was only a simple move, it emitted a terrifying aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. It was as if it could shatter the void with a single punch. What kind of martial art is this? This guy's aura has suddenly increased by more than a few times. How is this possible? Oh no, Gu Qingmu underestimated his opponent. This guy is pretending to be weak. Seeing Fei Ren suddenly erupt with powerful strength, the expressions of the pavilion of Prince Tung elders on the city gate changed drastically. Even Lin Feng's expression became serious. It seemed that he had not expected Fei Ren to have hidden his strength. Where did this guy come from? Not only is his mental power powerful, but his origin power cultivation is also extraordinary. Lin Feng, have never heard of such a peerless genius who cultivates both martial arts and alchemy. Lin Feng's expression was serious. In his heart, he even had a feeling that Gu Qingmu might not be Fei Ren's opponent. Tree World descends. Facing Fei Ren's attack again, Gu Qingmu's expression was also horrified. In the next moment, the spirit ring on his finger flashed, and he took out a green wooden staff. Then, the origin power in his body surged. Countless green, giant tree vines suddenly surged out from the ground below. Only then did he manage to block Fei Ren's golden fist. Boom! Although he managed to block Fei Ren's attack, the terrifying fist energy still tore apart the giant tree vines on the ground. Then, they turned into fine powder. It was enough to show that the power of Fei Ren's punch was not ordinary. This guy's strength is actually so strong. Could it be that he did not use his full strength earlier? Damn it! After escaping from a dangerous situation, Gu Qingmu's face was filled with fear. His expression was serious. He could feel that the power of his opponent's punch was enough to kill any martial artist below the 7th level of the Star Realm. If he took the punch head-on, even he would not be able to withstand it. Even if he did not die, he would be severely injured. It was obvious that Fei Ren's strength was not weaker than any of the 4 great geniuses of the Imperial City, including himself. A rank 4 martial art. With my current origin power cultivation, the power of the Dharma Golden Arm is still a bit lacking. If the Dharma 1000 transformation technique breaks through to greater completion, or if my origin power cultivation improves, this brat will not be able to block my punch even if he uses a rank 4 martial art. However, this is enough. Seeing that Gu Qingmu had blocked his powerful punch, Fei Ren was not too surprised. He also retreated to the back with a calm expression. Guqingmu, didn't you say that you would let me have 3 moves? Why do you people from the 9 ranks of the great families like to shoot empty shots? Fei Ren raised his eyes to look at Guqingmu, who was not far away from him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and his tone was playful. Previously, in order to block his attack, Guqingmu had not only gone back on his word and counterattacked, but had also used his full strength. Otherwise, he would not have been able to block Lu Sheng's full-strength punch, which was supported by the Dharma Golden Arm. After using the Dharma Golden Arm, Fei Ren's attack power would not only increase by several times, but the defensive power of his arms would also increase by several times. They would be invulnerable to swords and spears, and would be impervious to fire and water. They would be like a miniature acquired mighty body, and even be able to withstand the impact of a spirit treasure with his physical body. However, the only drawback was that with Fei Ren's current origin power cultivation, he could not use the power of the Dharma Golden Arm frequently. It consumed a lot of origin power. He could only use it as a surprise killing move, just like the Spirit Blade that he had. Chapter 223. You. In the face of Fei Ren's mockery, Guqingmu was at a loss for words. After all, he had made a solemn vow and acted pretentious before. Now, not only had he been forced to use his full strength by Fei Ren, but he had also almost been seriously injured. It was a slap in the face, so any rebuttal would only be laughed at by the crowd. Above the city gate, Your Majesty, this kid's strength is probably not weaker than a 7th-level Star Realm cultivator. Guqingmu might not be his match. At this moment, Su Tianqing's gaze was also attracted by the intense battle on the field, and he immediately spoke. Guqingmu was the #1 young disciple of the pavilion of Prince Tong, and he was also Lin Feng's disciple. Su Tianqing was secretly pleased to see him suffer in the hands of Fei Ren. After all, the scene of Lin Feng mocking the Qingyuan sect disciple Zhang Jie was still vivid in his mind. He naturally had to get back at him. You're right. Guqingmu has already been forced to use his full strength. On the other hand, this little kid named Fei Ren seems to be holding back. Moreover, I'm afraid that even Xing wouldn't dare to face that golden martial art head-on. Its power is enough to kill a 7th-level Star Realm cultivator. I wonder which county this Fei Ren is from. Emperor Chu Tianyang nodded. He was also paying attention to the battle on the field. His gaze did not stop on Fei Ren's body. His tone was filled with emotion, and there was no lack of appreciation for talent in his heart. This useless thing. Seeing Chu Tianyang and Su Tianqing echoing each other, Lin Feng's face turned gloomy. Then, he shifted his gaze away from Guqingmu. After all, Guqingmu was his disciple. Now that he was being suppressed by a rogue cultivator, it was obviously a great loss of face. Although your words are like farts, this 3rd move will also be the last move. I will definitely win this battle. After a few breaths of battle in the central square, Fei Ren had more or less figured out the strength of his opponent. He immediately grinned. Although his opponent had blocked his full-strength punch under the Dharma Golden Arm, this was only one of his trump cards. Arrogant. Do you really think that there's no one in my pavilion of Prince Ting? Tree World descends. In the face of Fei Ren's provocation, Guqingmu's face turned gloomy. In the next moment, his figure soared into the air and retreated. At the same time, he waved the green wooden staff in his hand up and down. Strands of majestic yuan power gushed out from his body and spread over the entire area. The ground beneath their feet was completely enveloped by a never-ending, formless aura. This move again? Seeing that Guqingmu had retreated, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes. It seemed that Guqingmu did not intend to fight him head-on. Swish! Swish! At this time, thick vines of giant trees suddenly sprang out from the ground. In the next moment, they swept towards Fei Ren with a biting cold attack. The vines of the giant trees were vaguely covered with poison and thorns, causing people to not dare to touch them easily. Boom! Fei Ren stomped his feet on the ground and moved his entire body to the side. He easily dodged the whips of the giant tree vines. At the same time, he struck out with his palm and instantly annihilated the giant tree vines that came after him. They turned into a pile of powder and dissipated. This guy is very strong, and his speed is not bad. If I fight him head-on, I probably won't be his match. I can only drag this out and find a way to find this guy's weakness. After retreating to the back, Gu Qingmu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. His Tree World Descends was a level 4 martial art. He could use his Yuan power to summon a large number of giant tree vines. At the same time, he could form a formless aura that was beneficial to his battle. Moreover, his Yuan power cultivation was at the 6th level of the Star Realm. He had the advantage of a higher realm. As long as he had enough Yuan power in his Dantian, these giant tree vines would grow and multiply endlessly. It would be enough to exhaust Fei Run to death. You want to exhaust me to death from a distance? That's a good plan. However, this is not all I'm capable of. Fei Ren moved his body a few times. In the next moment, he easily dodged the pincer attack of dozens of giant tree vines. At the same time, his body shot into the air. The golden Yuan power all over his body became denser, as if it was brewing some kind of tyrannical attack. This guy, you're courting death. Gu Qingmu, who was on the ground below, was stunned when he saw Fei Ren's body shoot into the air. Then, a hint of ecstasy flashed across his eyes. Initially, he wanted to find Fei Ren's weakness. However, he did not expect Fei Ren to fall into his trap so easily. It was common knowledge that martial artists below the martial master realm could not fly at all. At the same time, they did not have any leverage in the air. Hence, it was difficult for them to dodge large-scale attacks. In Gu Qingmu's eyes, Fei Ren's actions were undoubtedly a trap of his own making. He was digging his own grave. 10,000 with sublimation. With a roar, Yuan power surged from Gu Qingmu's body. A dazzling emerald green light suddenly exploded. In the next moment, the giant tree vines on the ground seemed to be attracted by something. They suddenly became incomparably violent. Their area and power increased by more than a few times. At the same time, they rapidly attacked Fei Run in the air. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A large number of giant tree vines attacked. Then, they intertwined and gathered together like a roaring wooden dragon. The aura was suffocating. Green Dragon Halberd. In the face of the giant tree vines that covered the sky, Fei Ren's expression did not change. In the next moment, he also let out a roar. The Grade 5 Spirit Treasure, Green Dragon Halberd, appeared in the palm of his right hand. At the same time, the golden Yuan power on his body became denser. It was like a dazzling sun, causing people to be slightly absent-minded. This kid's aura has increased again. On the top of the city gate, an elder of the pavilion of Prince Tung cried out involuntarily when he saw Fei run in the air. It was as if he had seen something unbelievable. Grade 5 Spirit Treasure. Unlike this elder of the pavilion of Prince Tung, Chu Tianyang, who was the strongest, could see that the green dragon halberd in Fei Ren's hand was extraordinary. It was a Grade 5 Spirit Treasure. One had to know that the entire Dacha dynasty did not have a single Grade 5 Spirit Treasure. It was enough to show how rare Grade 5 Spirit Treasures were. It's actually a Grade 5 Spirit Treasure. Where did this kid get it from? On the side, Lin Feng also noticed the extraordinariness of the green dragon halberd in Fei Ren's hand. His expression was extremely shocked. In the next moment, a trace of greed could not help but appear in his eyes. If he could obtain a Grade 5 Spirit Treasure, his strength would soar by several times. He might even be able to contend with the current emperor, Chu Tianyang. However, Fei Ren had exposed a Grade 5 Spirit Treasure in public. Not only him, but even Emperor Chu Tianyang and Su Tianqing had seen it. It would be difficult for Lin Feng to snatch the treasure from Fei Ren's hands. After all, with so many pairs of eyes watching, it would be easy for him to become the target of public criticism. Moreover, in their eyes, Fei Ren was just a junior rogue cultivator. A group of veteran Star Realm martial artists would inevitably be ridiculed by the world if they snatched something from a junior in broad daylight. Your Majesty, this kid, Su Tianxing stepped forward. Now that Fei Run had a grade 5 spirit treasure in his hand, it was obviously difficult for Gu Qingmu to win. The grade 5 spirit treasure is this kid's opportunity. You and I are all seniors of the Star Realm. We must not have any improper thoughts about the things of a junior rogue cultivator. Today, this kid has broadened my horizons. Chu Tianyang glanced at Su Tianxing, who was a little uneasy beside him. Perhaps he had also sensed everyone's inner thoughts. He raised his hand and spoke in a meaningful tone. The way he looked at Fei Run in the air was also somewhat strange and interesting, as if a father-in-law was looking at his good son-in-law. Chapter 2:24. Unlike Lin Feng, Su Tianxing, and the rest, Chu Tianyang was not very interested in the secrets on Fei Ren's body. Although a grade 5 soul treasure was extremely rare, he valued the other party's talent and comprehension ability more. One must know that Fei Ren was only 17 or 18 years old. Moreover, his yuan power cultivation was only at the 4th level of the Star Realm. However, he was able to force the number 1 genius of the pavilion of Prince Tang, Gu Qingmu, into a desperate situation. Such talent and strength could be called a heaven's pride. Moreover, even Chu Jiuxing could not do so at the same level. At this moment, Chu Tianyang already had the intention to rope in Fei Run. His most beloved daughter was Princess Lu Yuan, Chu Qian. Moreover, Chu Qian had just reached adulthood and had yet to be engaged. If he could match Fei Run and Chu Qian together, it would be a blessing for the great Chu royal family. We have taken a fancy to this person. If you dare to attack him, don't blame us for being impolite. Chu Tianyang collected his thoughts. In the next moment, he raised his eyes to look at the surrounding crowd and spoke with a deeper meaning. He clearly planned to knock on the upper echelons of the sect present and tell them not to covet the grade 5 soul treasure on Fei Ren's body. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. Is Chu Tianyang trying to rope in that brat? However, it's useless. This grade 5 soul treasure will sooner or later be mine, Lin Feng's. With a snort, Lin Feng also withdrew his gaze. His expression was dark and gloomy. He seemed to have other plans in his heart that were unfathomable. Break! In the air, the golden light gradually shone to the extreme. In the next moment, Fei Ren's halberd swept across the air. The sharp green dragon halberd instantly erupted with a majestic and vast golden yuan power. A large amount of golden yuan power entwined and condensed into a roaring giant dragon that met the attacking giant tree vines head-on. Roar! Rumble! The giant golden dragon let out a long roar towards the heavens, instantly crushing and tearing apart the giant trees and vines. A large amount of green yuan power dissipated and turned into nothingness. Even the surrounding air emitted waves of ear-piercing, tearing sounds. The ground beneath everyone's feet trembled incessantly, as if the halberd had broken through the void. What kind of martial art is this? Seeing this scene, at this moment, not only the many martial artists watching the battle at the side, even the upper echelons of the sects on the city gate not far away were shocked. Their mouths were wide open in disbelief, as if a fist could be stuffed in. How can this be? Gu Qingmu, who was on the ground below, had a drastic change in his expression when he saw that his strongest attack had been disintegrated in an instant. However, before he could react and dodge, the remaining power of the golden dragon swept over with an imposing manner. TSK. Rumble. In one exchange, the giant golden dragon's tail swept fiercely onto Gu Qingmu's chest. In the next moment, a huge wave of origin power erupted, instantly sending Gu Qingmu flying far away like a kite with a broken string. Instantly, blood splattered all over the ground, and the origin power's residual power surged. The scene was suffocating. Boom! Gu Qingmu's figure somersaulted a few times in the air, and in the next moment, his entire body fiercely fell to the ground. His complexion became extremely pale, and he could no longer stand up. Moreover, The yuan power fluctuation and aura on his body had abruptly dropped to an extremely low level. It was even worse than a middle unity stage martial artist, and it seemed that he was not far from death. With just one move, the outcome had been decided. At this moment, the entire place was silent. Not a single sound could be heard. In this battle, Fei Ren wins. Looking at Gu Qingmu, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog and had lost all his aura, one of the Imperial Palace experts in charge of the referee secretly swallowed his saliva. Then, he restrained his shocked expression and said loudly at the same time. However, his voice was somewhat trembling. Who? After killing Gu Qingmu in one strike, Fei Ren's figure also landed steadily on the ground. Then he pulled back the azure dragon halberd, and the halberd hung diagonally beside his feet. His eyes were calm. Although he had exposed the Grade 5 spirit treasure, the azure dragon halberd, in this battle, everything was worth it. Now that he had defeated the number 1 genius of the Pavilion of Prince Tung, Gu Qingmu, in addition to being able to advance to the finals tomorrow, his strength would also be valued by everyone present. Fei Ren was very clear in his heart that as long as his strength and talent were strong enough, the great Chu royal family would definitely protect him. Moreover, Chu Qian had previously tried to rope him in. Even if some people coveted his opportunity, they might not dare to attack him openly. As for being secretly hunted down, Fei Ren was not afraid at all. As long as it was not a martial master expert, it would not be so easy for an ordinary high-star realm martial artist to kill him. They might even be killed by him. Now, he had the strength to do so. He won. Outside the arena, Song Shiluan's face was blank and incomparably shocked when he saw Fei Ren's halberd sweep across the sky and defeat Gu Qingmu from the pavilion of Prince Ting. Brother Fei's strength has actually become stronger again. This time, even Gu Qingmu was no match for him. Could it be that Brother Fei can now contend against the Crown Prince? Originally, he had thought that Fei Ren's strength would at most be able to contend against a 5th-level star realm martial artist. It was already very difficult for him to enter the finals. However, Song Shiluan did not expect that his opponent's strength would become stronger, as if there was no limit to it. Befriending him before was indeed a wise choice. Looks like there is hope for the revival of the Song family. When he thought of this, Song Shiluan's face trembled slightly. It was obvious that he was very excited. Although he did not have much of a relationship with Fei Ren, it was enough to have a little relationship with him. With Fei Ren's talent and strength, he would definitely become a formidable hero of the Dacha dynasty in the future. This kid really won. On the city gate tower, Chu Tianyang's expression gradually relaxed. He immediately grinned as if he was very gratified. Congratulations, Your Majesty. A rare peerless genius has been discovered in this World Heroes competition. If nothing unexpected happens in the future, this kid will definitely become a powerhouse of the Dacha dynasty. It is truly a blessing for the Dacha dynasty. As soon as Chu Tianyang finished speaking, a sallow-faced Qingyuan sect elder chuckled. Then, he cupped his hands together and bowed. It was obvious that he understood Chu Tianyang's thoughts very well and wanted to strike while the iron was hot to flatter him. You're right. I also have high hopes for this kid. Limi Chu Tianyang nodded with a gratified expression. Then, he turned his head and looked at the people behind him. Yes, Your Majesty. As soon as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man in a brocade robe walked out from the crowd and knelt down to kowtow. It was the current Grand Commandant, Li Mi. At this time, other than the upper echelons of the sects, there were also many military officials and important ministers of the imperial court watching the battle in the city gate tower. As for Grand Commandant Li Mi, he was naturally among them. Like Chu Tianyang and the others, Li Mi was also shocked by Fei Ren's powerful strength. When he came into contact with Fei Ren before, he did not expect the other party's strength to be so strong. Pass down my decree. After the martial arts competition ends, bring that kid called Fei Ren to me. There must be no mistakes. Chu Qianyang's tone was indifferent. There was no lack of a trace of the majesty of an emperor, causing people to not dare to resist. Minister Li Mi accepts the decree. In the face of Chu Tianyang's words as a rank 1 official, the current Grand Commandant Li Mi also bowed his head and accepted the decree. He did not dare to have any complaints. Not only did he defeat the #1 genius of the Pavilion of Prince Tong, Gu Qingmu, he also ruthlessly slapped Pavilion Master Lin Feng's face. Moreover, he has also obtained the attention of His Majesty the Emperor. Looks like this kid, Fei Run, is going to become famous in the Imperial City. Li Mi slowly retreated to the back and saw the gloomy face of Lin Feng on one side and Chu Tianyang on the other side, who was in a good mood. At this time, Li Mi secretly thought in his heart and sighed repeatedly. Chapter 225. At the same time, on the other side of the crowd, after Fei Run defeated Gu Qingmu, Chu Jiuxing and the others also looked in his direction. I didn't expect Gu Qingmu to be defeated by a rogue cultivator. With a grave expression, Ren Jianan crossed his arms in front of his chest. His tone was full of disbelief. Although Gu Qingmu's strength was at the bottom of the 4 great geniuses, and he wasn't as strong as Chu Jiuxing and the others, he was still a 6th-level Star Realm genius. His strength was comparable to an ordinary 7th-level Star Realm martial artist. Coupled with the fact that he had cultivated a 4th-level martial technique, his overall strength wasn't much weaker than theirs. However, even with such strength, Gu Qingmu was still defeated by the unknown Fei Run. Moreover, it was a crushing defeat. He could not resist at all. Ren Jianan, this kid's strength is not weaker than yours or mine. Gu Qingmu clearly underestimated him. Moreover, the long halberd spirit treasure in Fei Ren's hand is quite powerful. Its rank is at least 4th level. This kid's opportunity is beyond our imagination. We can't underestimate him. Beside him, Su Sun also stepped forward. His tone was equally serious. Although his initial goal was to defeat the Crown Prince, Chu Jiuxing, and wipe away his previous humiliation, Su Sun now discovered that Chu Jiuxing was not his only opponent. Fei Run, whose origin was unknown and whose strength was not ordinary, was also a formidable opponent. How can this be? Its rank is at least 4th level. Could be a 5th-level spirit treasure. Hearing this, Ren Jianan was shocked. At first, he also noticed that Fei Ren's green dragon halberd was extraordinary. However, he never expected it to be a legendary 5th-level spirit treasure. One had to know that even in the entire Dacha dynasty, no one had a 5th-level spirit treasure. Not even the imperial family and the 3-9 ranks of the great families had a 5th-level spirit treasure. As for ordinary high-star realm martial artists, it was extremely rare to have a 3rd-level spirit treasure. Even the current Emperor Chu Tianyang, the strongest person in the Dacha dynasty, only had a 4th-level spirit treasure. Spirit treasures were one of the lifelines of a martial artist's strength. If 2 high-star realm martial artists of the same level had a powerful spirit treasure, they could easily crush their opponent. This was the strength of a spirit treasure. Fei Ren had a 5th-level spirit treasure. Although his Yuan power cultivation was not as strong as Gu Qingmu's from the Pavilion of Prince Tong, it was not surprising that he could kill his opponent with the help of a 5th-level spirit treasure. That's it, how? Ren Jianan. Seeing Su Sun nod her head slightly, the surprise on Ren Jianan's face deepened. After a long while, he slowly recovered. He then shook his head and sneered. A man's wealth is his own ruin. The secret of this kid having a 5th-level spirit treasure has already been exposed. I'm afraid that many people will have their eyes on him after this World Conference of Heroes. Although he defeated Gu Qingmu, it may not be a good thing. Ren Jianan's tone could not help but reveal a trace of mockery. It was as if he had already predicted the predicament Fei Run would face after the competition. Su Sun, who was beside him, was silent, as if she had tacitly agreed with this view. After all, the rarity of a 5th-level spirit treasure made it difficult for people to remain calm. Moreover, from how Fei Run had defeated Gu Qingmu with a single halberd, it could be seen that even among spirit treasures of the same level, the green dragon halberd's power was one of the best. Therefore, it was even more attractive. You want to have ideas about the green dragon halberd in my hands? Then come and try. After stepping down from the stage, Fei Ren felt the countless burning gazes directed at him from outside the arena. He licked his lips and sneered. He was very clear in his heart that once he took out the green dragon halberd, he would attract unwanted attention. However, with his current strength, no one below the martial master realm could do anything to him. If he could not defeat him, he could still use the flying heaven-earth escape technique to escape. Moreover, he had defeated Gu Qingmu. His talent and strength had also been noticed by Emperor Chu Tianyang and the others. They would definitely try their best to rope him in. After all, there were many powerful enemies wreaking havoc in the periphery of the Dacha dynasty. Among them, the strongest power in the Dongling province was a big threat. The Great Chu imperial court and the imperial family needed powerful talents. Brother Fei, you're too strong. I didn't think that even Gu Qingmu would not be your opponent. Taking a step forward, Song Shirluan also jumped in front of Fei Ren and gave him a thumbs up. He had seen the power of Fei Ren's halberd. Although Song Shirluan did not know the exact grade of the spirit treasure in his hand, he could tell that it was definitely not low. After all, it could severely injure Gu Qingmu, who was a 6th-level Star Realm cultivator and had used a 4th-level martial art. It was definitely not an ordinary item. Actually, I also used all my strength, Fei Ren grinned. He didn't have any intention of showing off in his words. Other than the Immortal refining cauldron that could not be exposed and the 8 trigrams flag that he had not used, he had indeed used all his strength to defeat the number 1 genius of the pavilion of Prince Teng, Gu Qingmu. As the number 1 disciple of the 9 ranks of the great families, Gu Qingmu was not as weak as he had imagined. Moreover, just as Su Sun and Ren Jianan had said, Fei Ren did not have any advantage in terms of cultivation level. If not for the power of the Grade 5 Azure Dragon halberd in his hand, he would not have been able to defeat Gu Qingmu so easily. Brother Fei Ren. Just as the two of them were talking, a man's faint laughter came from the side. In the next instant, a young man in luxurious clothes leaped over and landed in front of Fei Ren. It was the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing. Your Highness. When they saw that it was Chu Jiuxing, Fei Ren and Song Shirluan had a tacit understanding. They cupped their fists together. You're very strong. You're not weaker than Ren Jianan and Su Sun. Even I dare not say that I'm a match for you. Chu Jiuxing raised his hand and said with a smile. There was a hint of gratification in his tone. Unlike the others, although Chu Jiuxing had extraordinary talent and strength, he was kind-hearted. He was not a bloodthirsty person. As long as it was not a mortal enemy, he would usually take the initiative to befriend and rope them in. He had the aura of the pugilistic world. It was also because of this that Chu Tianyang had a headache when it came to his son, Chu Jiuxing. He believed that Chu Jiuxing did not have the necessary conditions to become an emperor. However, as the eldest son of the imperial family, he had no choice but to nurture Chu Jiuxing and treat him as his successor. Your Highness, you're too kind. I'm just a rogue cultivator. Compared to your Highness, my strength is nothing. In the face of Chu Jiuxing's praise, Fei Ren was not surprised. He shook his head. Although his origin power cultivation base was not as strong as Chu Jiuxing's, he could still sense that Chu Jiuxing's origin power was very dense. He had already reached the 7th level of the Star Realm. He was even stronger than Ren Jianan, Su Sun, and Gu Qingmu, who had lost to him. He was very powerful. Even so, I'm still looking forward to your performance in the finals tomorrow. With a grin, Chu Jiuxing turned around and was about to leave. However, in the next moment, he seemed to have thought of something and spoke again. By the way, although Ren Jianan's 9 green sky sword art is powerful, I advise you to pay more attention to Su Sun. Although that kid's background is ordinary, he rose to become the strongest disciple of the Green Essence sect in just a few years. His strength is not as simple as we think. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.